Protective magic is a basic skill that is taught from childhood to anyone with magical abilities. As children grow older, they gradually develop the powers of water, fire, wind, and earth. But the main character is just a child who can only defend himself with magic and has no special abilities. Because of this, other children often insult him with cruel words. But despite this, he does not give up and remains persistent. He claims that he will one day conquer the entire world using only his protective charms. 7 years have passed, and before us is a girl in a skirt. She orders the bullies to attack a boy named Reese, who is late again. At this point, her skirt rises slightly. She is annoyed that Reese is late again. Suddenly, one of the hooligans is hit by a stone thrown from the roof. The guy smiles mockingly and asks if they're looking for anyone. Reese enjoys the situation, jokes that they had the nerve to lift the girl's skirt. Then he says goodbye and continues running across the rooftops. As he runs, he realizes that he is still being chased, but one of the hooligans quickly runs into the fruit cart. Then they decided to climb onto the roof, but the main character had already left. As a result, the hooligans themselves fell into the river. After a while, they wonder where the runaway girl has gone, and decide to ask a girl walking along the road about her. The girl, who is Reese's sister, is embarrassed and asks if her brother did something. But before she can finish, one of the bullies tries to grab her. But then a hero appears with his magic shield and warns everyone not to touch his sister. The group leader orders his men to definitely capture the boy this time. One of the bullies smugly says that the boy attacked first, so he has no right to demand anything or complain about what happens next. He also adds that Reese is just an ordinary boy with nothing special. Reese calmly says that the bullies can try to intimidate him all they want. All 3 pursuers eventually fall to the ground themselves. It was all Alfie, the student council president, who was to blame. One of the bullies tries to justify himself, saying he was protecting the girl. But Alfie says he will talk to her himself because Reese is his childhood friend. Annoyed, one of the hooligans suggests hitting the president at least once. But Alfie uses his magic and creates a wall of fire that prevents them from getting any closer. After that, Alfie tells them to calm down and pours water on them to cool them down. This is Alfie Lightguard, known as the hero of the future, who is capable of overcoming any limits. The hooligans started arguing among themselves and couldn't decide what to do next. With a determined look, Alfie says that soon he will not be able to contain his fire magic. Suddenly, the girl who caused all this to happen appears and asks why they're taking so long. Upon seeing Alfie, she immediately becomes embarrassed and very shy. She gently asks the boy if the perpetrators have harmed him and invites him to a family celebration. At that moment, she notices Reese. She also added that Alfie should choose his friends more carefully, because he is an ordinary, simple person. Confidently and sternly, Alfie says that she has no right to decide who he should be friends with and orders her to get out of the way. Then she runs away, crying. The bully leader tells the boy that he should be ashamed of himself because Alfie is always protecting him. Reese replies with a smile that Alfie is actually protecting the bullies themselves, and they are lucky they didn't have to deal with him directly. The president comments with relief that the group has finally left, and his friend thanks him. With his arms crossed, the hero jokes that he was just helping the children practice magic, but one of them took it and stabbed him. At this point, he starts showing off his teasing and skirt-lifting skills, which annoys Alfie. Smiling, the president asks why he has to rake up the mess left by the res every day. Suddenly, someone comes up and says he saw the previous fight. This is the man who recognizes Alfie and calls him the one who possesses the 4 qualities. While they are talking, the girl notices that Alfie is really striking. There are always many people around in stylish clothes. In this world, most magicians can only control one element, so people like Alfie who possess all magical powers are very rare. Feeling a little jealous of his sister's words, Reese complains that, on top of everything else, his friend also attracts girls with his looks. Her sister keeps telling her how cool Alfie is, and then Reese asks her to talk about something else. She says seriously, Alfie is not like other men at all. Annoyed, she tells Reese to finally take everything seriously. Then she asks if he was in the forest of Hades that day. The worried girl says that the teacher always warned about the forest because there are scary monsters there. To calm her down, Reese says he only goes to safe places in the forest. Changing his tone, he says that at the entrance to the forest there is a mushroom growing that is very valuable and can be sold profitably to the rich. Suddenly, his sister bit his brother hard. After a while, Alfie informs Reese that scouts will be coming to the village from the capital. Little sister Alfie is in the kitchen now, and he says he will now make a cup of tea for the president. When they sat down, Alfie told Reese that the School of Magic for the smartest recruits, the best students from all over the country. He says that only the most talented magicians get into this school, and that the most powerful wizards came from this very place. Reese tries to change the subject and says he doesn't care where his friend goes to school, let him choose. Alfie asks if Reese is upset about it. With a strange expression on his face, the main character replies that it is impossible to get there, because he is an ordinary person and is competing with very talented people. At the end, he says that he has no talents at all, and everyone around him thinks the same about him. As he leaves, Alfie says that the school is in the capital, and the exam starts in a month, so he's going there next week. A little insulting? Alfie says that since Reese didn't even say goodbye, it must not be that important to him. And finally, goodbye. Now with a determined look, Reese thinks about a magic school for geniuses. He laughs because he just thought of something funny. A man named Velius stands in front of the carriage and asks the president if he is ready to leave. Everyone replies that it is him. Meanwhile, Reese has returned to the forest and thinks that Alfie must have already left. Entering a dangerous part of the forest, Reese says he doesn't like it here. Meanwhile, Alfie is in the carriage with Velius. Smiling, Velius asks if Alfie is upset about having to leave her hometown. I'll ask him if there's anyone in that city he could never beat. Yes, he is a little confused, laughs, and says that now he understands what Alfie is talking about. With a mysterious smile, Velius asks if the boy is talking about the girl he fell in love with. Alfie remembers all the times from his childhood when Reese outplayed him. Meanwhile, Reese continues to run through the forest. Suddenly, a huge bear appears behind him and almost attacks. Reese looks around angrily, showing no fear. Meanwhile, Alfie says that even if someone is reborn with cheater abilities, they still won't become the strongest warrior, especially while he's around. Hearing this, Velius becomes even more confused, but Alfie tells him to ignore it and just forget about it. Looking out the train window, Alfie remembers that he never managed to solve 6 mysteries, but he quickly realizes that it doesn't matter anymore. Now he wants to become stronger in school and finally surpass Reese. Meanwhile, in the village, Reese goes to a huge tree. He knocks on the door and calls his grandmother, saying he came to play with her. Annoyed, he starts pounding on the door with his hands and feet. But nothing happens. With a sneer, he calls his mistress Ba and asks if he shouldn't stop greeting people like that. His mistress shows up and says that this is one of the few pleasures in her life. If Reese doesn't like it, he can just stop coming. Ba hits Riz on the head and shouts that he is still just a child, and the boy replies that anyone would be confused if she appeared in public in this form. Embarrassed, Ba asks if he is attracted to her beauty, but Reese replies that he prefers women with different builds. Ba merely says that he is annoying her by interrupting her bathing, and Reese jokes that she could wash herself with magic. In less than a second, Ba appears fully dressed and asks why Reese has come and what he needs. The boy smiles boldly and says it's time to make a change. This makes the grandmother curious. Raising his shield to the sky, Reese says it's time to change the world's attitude towards protective magic. Alfie first realized that he was a reincarnation when he grew up and began to remember his past. In his past life, he was an ordinary person who lived on Earth and enjoyed reading light novels on his phone. Since the boy was already used to the idea of reincarnation, it was much easier for him to accept life in the world of magic. During the initiation, he learned that he could control all 4 elements, and this became a real sensation, because this had never happened before. At that moment, he thought that this would be his story, the story of how he would become the greatest warrior in this world. But that was not the case, because in the same village lived someone much stronger than him. The strongest boy was called Reese, and if Alfie wanted to beat him, he would have to leave the village. That was impossible in the village. Thinking about all this, Alfie decides that he will definitely become better than his friend. Meanwhile, several lumberjacks are working in the forest and decide to take a break. They look up and notice something strange in the sky. The hero flies with his mentor, and he says that thanks to this magical device, they can travel through the sky even faster. The guy says that the bag he's carrying is a little heavy, and the old woman replies that he still has to thank her for it. Even more irritated, the student rudely tells her to shut up, calling her a pathetic witch. Lova says it usually takes a whole week, but his mentor explains that at this rate they will reach the location by lunchtime. A little hesitantly, the woman asks the teenager if it's really the right thing to do to say goodbye to her family in the city. With these thoughts, he recalls how the farewell went. The guy simply said that he was going to study in the capital, would live there, and wouldn't be back for a long time. Hearing this news unexpectedly, his parents and sister are very shocked. The guy breaks the news and simply closes the door, not even paying attention to how others will react. His sister runs to the door in despair, but upon opening it she realizes that he has already left. The girl is overcome with rage and says that he is terribly selfish, and the next time they meet she will make him answer for everything. After all this, the main character decides that the next time he returns home, he will definitely bring a lot of sweets from the capital. His master says that while he was thinking about this nonsense, they were already flying to their destination. Then the girl orders him to land directly in the capital. When Lovis enters this place, she is amazed by the wide streets, and all people communicate with each other. Eventually they arrive at the famous School of Magic. Looking around, Reese notices that there are even magical guards here, but the witch just sighs and says that this is another display of power and control. The most difficult thing was to figure out the finances, but this issue has already been resolved, because the hero sold all the hunted demons to the Hunters Guild. But now that he thinks about it, he realizes that he shouldn't have given away all 3 bears at once. The witch says that no one can handle the demon alone, and immediately asks if he even knows how to get here. In response, the main character says that his grandmother already knows about his dream, and he told her about it a long time ago. By activating his skill, he declares that he will show the whole world what was once called the curse of protective magic and reveal the true power of his abilities. He confidently said that he is going to take over the school, fight the principal, and beat everyone up, which makes the old woman laugh out loud. After punching her student in the stomach, she calls him a fool. She says he'll definitely get caught if he tries to pull this off. Sini says he's just inexperienced, and even though he has a lot of strength, he would lose in a one-on-one fight with that guy. She says she knows him, because she traveled a lot and wasn't just an ordinary old woman her whole life. At this moment, the girl remembers that she has already met him, when she saved Hades in the forest. The witch is a wise woman who has lived in the forest for 100 years. She really liked Reese's fascination with protective magic and decided to take him under her wing. She made him undergo very rigorous training, but through it, she taught him everything she knows as a wise mentor. Back in the present, the old woman gives the boy a letter and advises him not to fly in the clouds. She says it's her letter and he should show it to the director. Its owner, with her arms folded across her chest, says she came to the capital to enjoy sweets for the first time in almost 100 years. Then she runs away happily, saying goodbye. Inside the magic school, he is nervous because he remembers how easily he was once taken to the principal's office. At this moment, a girl comes in and introduces herself. She is Deist Guberg, director of the Academy of Magic Geniuses. Tasting the treat, the hero enthusiastically says that it is incredibly delicious and asks if he can take the leftovers with him. Intrigued, the principal says he read a letter from the girl's former teacher and asks if she is his student. He explains that the confusing nature of the note makes it immediately clear that it was written by that woman. The newcomer happily asks, "So I'm already enrolled?" But the director replies that he'll explain everything in a moment. Soon the main character is warming up, preparing to take the entrance exam. At this moment, the examiner arrives and conducts the entrance test. He says that he can tell from experience how talented a person is, and claims that the guy has even less magical abilities than most. Curious? The director asks the guy what he's doing, and he replies that he's just warming up a bit. The director is surprised, but the examiner explains that this is a strange exercise that he has seen soldiers do in the barracks. The director is shocked, wondering if a magician really has to do this before a fight. Then he remembers that this is exactly what the old master did before every training fight. With this in mind, Dis completely changes his mind and asks Zest to add this to the practical classes at school. Just then, a woman with glasses appears. She calls the guy a commoner and asks how long she has to wait for him. He calmly apologizes and says he's ready now. The woman who will fight the main character is called Jiraiya. She says that the guy must fight at full strength, otherwise he will be disqualified. Zest will evaluate the work of the newcomers. At this point, the principal says that the exam should start right now. The professor agrees to carry out the principal's order, but she doesn't believe that such a simple guy like him was even able to get into this school. Without hesitation, she casts a fire spell on the boy and tells him that he needs to know his place. Seeing this, the principal says that this professor has no remorse at all. The guy easily defends himself with his magic shield. Seeing this, the woman says she is impressed with how he blocked the blow, but she doubts that he is underestimating this school. She says that talent here is passed down through generations, and an ordinary person cannot get in here. Annoyed, the guy asks her to stop and quickly ends the game. At this moment, the professor uses her fire attack again. After she blocks the attack again, the newbie notices that her spell-casting speed is quite high. The woman asks in surprise if he can only use defensive magic, because he is using a shield again. Then the professor says that he should be proud, because now she will take him seriously. One of the teachers, shocked by what she saw, calls the principal and asks him to stop it immediately, because she's ready to summon a huge fireball. He explains that the guy has a really cool shield, but the protective magic takes up a lot of energy. At the same time, the director adds that he can heal him if necessary. Meanwhile, the professor prepares for a powerful fire attack, releases a huge burning ball of fire directly at the hero. Reese activates his shield again and wonders if this is a practice fight. The impact is so strong that there is a huge explosion, and everyone around is shocked. The guy, without much effort, simply says that he was able to withstand the attack. The woman is amazed and says that the guy is truly amazing. She has never heard of a magical shield that could protect against such a force. The headmaster says that using defensive magic for such attacks is just nonsense. He himself does not believe that the boy can only possess such magic. At this moment, he takes a letter from his teacher, which states that Lovis can only use non-elemental defensive magic and warns that if he is underestimated, he can be seriously harmed. Seeing such incredible skill in defense, the woman is stunned and says that it is impossible. She also says that it's simply incredible how he manages to constantly maintain such a powerful protective shield that can withstand such blows. She angrily says that she doesn't believe he has enough magical power to do such a thing, and suspects that it might be a deception. But the hero replies that he didn't mean to offend her. But this so-called genius test turned out to be much easier than he thought. Hearing this, the woman feels offended and prepares to respond even more strongly. From the expression on her face, it's clear that the craftswoman is trying very hard when she casts a spell on the boy. I was surprised. One of the teachers said that if this magical light appeared, it meant she was really angry. Looking closely at her opponent, the girl realizes that the entire construction of the magic circle is changing. The woman says it's a Firelands attack. It's less destructive than a large fireball, but it penetrates much better. One of the teachers then calls the principal, saying that the boy will not be able to withstand such an attack. He comes to the conclusion, no matter how skillfully the director masters the art, he will not be able to revive a lifeless body. At this point, Dis tells Zest that this child is the beloved soul of the great sage. This surprises her husband, because she has never taken on students before. But another says that even his talent, she never considered anything special. Then he approaches the teacher and asks him to pretend that the student is not in danger, because he is interested in seeing how the student will behave on his own. Even more concerned, Zest asks the principal if he would really allow a student to be hit, and adds that it's not just about that. Meanwhile, Reese admits that he must have overstepped his bounds and now he can't justify himself. He looks determined. He says that in that case too, he will stop holding back. After that, he rushes at the woman and hits her hard. This shocks both the principal and the teacher. Sometime later, during the grand opening of the school, now the new students will be introduced to everyone. Among them is Alfie, who is happy to finally become a real student at such a famous academy. Looking around, he realizes that these are truly the best teachers in the country, especially Velius, who completely outplayed him on the practical exam. Without such skills, there is no point in entering this school. However, the boys quickly notice that the teachers are looking at them strangely, especially the woman who was beaten by the main character. Her expression reminds him of the time his friend beat him up, but he immediately dismisses the idea that Reese could be here. At this moment, the principal announces the name of the student who scored the highest on the entrance exams this year. Smiling, the boy introduces himself as Reese Lovis and says that he wants to become the strongest in the school and, thanks to protective magic, conquer the world. When the friend realizes who it is, he is very surprised and cannot understand why he is here. After a while, Alfie presses the hero against the wall and demands an explanation. He was very annoyed and asked how his friend got into this school in the first place. Meanwhile, elsewhere, the boy quickly tells the whole story about his friend. Remembering everything his friend told him, Lightheart begins to wonder who really has some kind of secret move. Changing the subject, he asked if his friend was really serious about saying that ridiculous thing at the ceremony, and Lovis calmly replied that yes, he was serious. Thinking about it, Alfie realizes that if Reese really wants to become the strongest in school, then he would have definitely made enemies out of almost all the freshmen that day. At this point, he starts laughing, and the prodigy says that his laughter is very annoying. With a sudden change in expression, he asked if Reese had forgotten that he too was now considered an enemy. The main character, with a fearless smile, says that it is simply impossible for him to forget his friend. As he leaves, Alfie says he doesn't want to be just a friend to the boy anymore. Once he beats Caden, his next rival will be Reese. Reese doesn't seem to know who it is, so Alfie explains. It's the girl who took the place right in front of him on the admissions list. At this moment, this girl is walking down the school hallway, and all the girls around her are discussing how pretty she is. In her entire family, she is the most talented and promising, and considers herself the best of all. Walking down the hallways, she thinks that this also means one thing. She is the best in the class again, just like she always has been since elementary school. And that's exactly how it should be as she continues to learn. However, she eventually becomes very irritated by the presence of the newcomer. A little later, at the training ground, one of the teachers introduces himself and announces that from now on, he will be in charge of the noble class. At this moment, the hero recognizes Professor Zest from the exam. Meanwhile, Kadena asks who should really rule the aristocracy. In response, Zest says that it should have been Miss Horea, and then looks at the protagonist and suggests that they resolve this issue themselves. Everyone quickly understands what the professor meant. She asks in surprise what this guy did to the professor. After that, Zest shows some strange orb. He says that before starting, everyone's level of magical power needs to be measured. He explains that if you put your hand on the crystal, a light will come on, and the brighter it is, the more magical power the person has. After seeing the results of one of the students, He says that her element is water, and her magical power is good. Then he explains that there is an opposite to the internal source of power, an external source that is in the air and can be absorbed. He further explains that they can absorb an external source through a skill called magical energy creation. Smiling awkwardly, the man apologizes, says he was a little distracted, and suggests continuing the measurements. One of the students named Barca says, "These are the abilities of the second son from the new and influential AIMO family. This girl also has such magical power." And the professor says she's from the Alfari family. She's also shown strong wind magic abilities. When everyone is upset, Alfie appears and asks to give him the sphere for a minute. When he touches the magical object with his hands, a bright light begins to pour from it. His friend asks if he's trying to be a son, and the professor says he's speechless because it's the first time he's seen something like this. "Are you sure?" Reese asks if he can go next. When he holds the magic item, there is almost no light visible. Seeing this, all the other students were surprised, and the professor asked if it was some kind of joke. It's hard to believe. The guy didn't seem to have any special talent, but he still beat Guria. Let's go back a little. The director told this man that he wanted to entrust him with the education of the noble class. He explained that because of the professor's condition, he was afraid she wouldn't be able to handle it. He also asked the man to evaluate the newcomers individually. With a sinister smile, he said he wanted to hear his opinion on the matter. Zest wonders what will happen if no one recognizes the boy's abilities as true talent. After all, it would greatly damage the school's reputation if their best student turned out to be a loser with no abilities. At this point, one of the dignity students joins the conversation. He says he immediately suspected something was wrong when he saw that the first place was taken by a person without any abilities or experience. Seeing this, everyone begins to doubt whether a person without any ability can do anything at all. Hearing all this, even Alfie feels a little uneasy because it's about his friend. The noble son continues calling the hero a commoner, and asks why he doesn't just pack his things and leave the school. In response, the protagonist simply brings something magical close to the spoiled brother. And to everyone's surprise, a lot of light is emitted. Reese mockingly asks if this is what the bully was looking for. The frightened professor wonders what Levis did, because everyone believes that changing the amount of magical power is simply impossible. At this time, the guy's employer is in the confectionery. Eat a lot of sweets. At this moment, the director appears and asks if she needs help to finish the work. But the owner says that won't happen, and adds that she can't offer him anything. Dis says they haven't had tea together in a long time, and she replies that he can wait another 10 or even 20 years. With his head down, he says that she hasn't changed at all. Meanwhile, a girl from a noble family uses her windthorn attack. Zest is thrilled, saying it's just as powerful as the professor's, and the only thing she needs to work on is reducing the projection time. The man explains that this giant shield was created specifically for such powerful blows, and most teachers cannot even break it. The professor continues the lesson and says that everyone must stand on the indicated line and use their strongest magic on the target. The man asks who wants to go next, and the boy suggests letting the best student in the class show off her skills first. He asks his friend if he thinks that girl hates him, and Alfie advises him to get it over with. The teacher worries, wondering if the master's student is up to something sinister. Returning to the conversation between old friends, the craftswoman asked how the director knew she was in the capital. The director says that the guards remembered the woman who was with the main character. She is interested in this question. She asks if he liked the boy from the school principal's perspective. At this moment, he remembers the fierce battle the boy had against the professor. Will there be enough strength for this battle? As a result, the professor in question suffered serious injuries. He behaves quite strangely and says that this guy is very funny, and it is simply impossible to understand his actions with the usual logic of a sorcerer. Meanwhile, the boy prepares to use his ability to repel spells. Surprised, he remembers that this spell uses the most magical energy of all the protective spells. As Reese prepares to attack, he remembers how protective magic was once laughed at and despised. Lawson decided to attend this school because he wanted to get rid of that way of thinking. At this point, he decides to risk everything. Use a very strong spell that will amaze everyone around. The professor understands that light magic is the most powerful concentration of magical energy, and the boy held it with his bare hands. Looking at the destroyed target, Zest realizes that a great sage truly knows how to see the essence of talent. Meanwhile, the wise teacher, who is actually a witch, refuses to say anything about her beloved student. The director is confused, but the woman reassures him, saying there is nothing to worry about. She looks suspiciously and says that there are no late hours for studying, and this month is not magical at all. Despite this, the headmaster apologizes for his immaturity, and the woman says that both he and the entire magic school should be happy about this event. She says that everyone will now see the abilities of her favorite student. After some time, the hero finds himself in the arena. Looking around, he says, "This is really very exciting." But the rival introduces himself, He says that he is the eldest son of the honorable Gnuork family, and in the name of Latos, he will defeat him. After that, he tells Reese to get ready. A few days before this event, Reese was truly surprised to see what delicious dishes were served in the dining room of such a prestigious school. While he eats, he admits that this place is a true paradise. His friend asks where Reese gets the money for admission, because he knows that Reese's family is not rich. He liked to talk about how he made a living selling the game he hunted to the Hunters Guild. Suddenly, his friend noticed something strange. He quickly begins to create a wall of wind. After that, he calms down, and the boy explains that it was a wild demonic bear. Then Alfie wonders if this demonic animal is really that dangerous in the forest. The hero simply calmly says, yes, adding that he had 3 such monsters. His friend says the guild doesn't have the money to pay for it, and suggests he must have brought it to the capital. Then he asks, how did he do it? Then the main character decides to show his amulet, which was hanging around his neck. Surprised, the genius says that such a magical thing is very rare. It seems that the boy was given this gift by his teacher as a farewell gift. She explained that thanks to this item he would not have to carry his things with him. After that, Reese tells his friend that he seems to have a huge warehouse with this amulet. Alfie is surprised and asks if he really put those 3 demon bears in the amulet. Changing the subject, the boy asks about the annoying noise, and his friend replies that he drowned it out with a wind barrier, but it seems that this is the result of his past mistakes. But enough is enough, it's time to stop anyway, otherwise the dining room will suffer from this. The protagonist asks if it's time to run away, but his friend says it's too late. In this case, one of the staff members takes both students to Professor Zess's office. A total of 3 students were accepted, including Lewis and his childhood friend. Then Zest asked them to explain what happened, and both said that they were just victims, and the real criminal was the boy with blue hair standing nearby. Stammering, the 3rd boy introduces himself as Latos Genoark, the eldest son of the respected Genoark family. This is a very famous and respected family of magicians who control the element of water. The teacher already roughly understands how it all happened, because he has heard a lot from other students. He realized that just during lunch, one of the Genoarch's supporters was trying to sneak past the line in the dining hall. But Reese ends up telling him to go back to where he came from, and calls him trash. The spoiled guy asks if the guy knows who he's dealing with, and the guy in response steps forward and says that at first, he just wanted to have a snack, but now he's really pissed off. Because of his pride, the young man could not back down. So when a wall of wind blocked his path, it angered him so much that he unleashed an incredible amount of magic. Zest understands that in this school all students should be equal, so it is Hanmark who is to blame. In that case, he is forced to punish both of them because Lovis was also wrong. This will make the situation fair for everyone. However, this time the professor decides not to do so, because he can use the situation to his advantage. Pretending to be sincere, he says that it's hard to understand who's to blame, right? But the main thing here is that one of them must be punished. With a wry smile, he asked if any of them had any ideas on how to decide who should be punished. At that moment, the noble son declares that he is challenging the boy to a duel, and this matter must be settled once and for all. Are you happy? The main character accepts the challenge. He says his name is Reese Levis and he is ready. However, students are forbidden from using magic to resolve personal conflicts. Alfie says not everyone can handle these things, and supervision requires an agreement between the student and teacher. He adds that everyone is just waiting for his friend to get hurt because of what he said at the opening. Looking serious, he says that you can't make fun of his rival and explains to the boy that his friend is the best in school. But the rich guy still says he will defeat him and rise to the nobility. Showing great self-confidence, he points at the hero and asks how he, knowing only protective magic, was able to get the highest score on the practical exam. Returning to the present, the prodigy tells his friend that he will be the one commentating on their match. He explains that usually this job is assigned to the teacher, but this time an exception was made because Lovis's magic is very rare. Clenching his fists, the protagonist says that one of his goals is to make others notice and acknowledge his protective magic. Sometime later, on the day of the duel, a woman cheers the audience on, announcing that the duel is about to begin. The confident rich guy declares that everyone will see how the newcomer is going to be truly humiliated. Then the woman announces that Reese's best friend, Alfie Lightheart, will be commentating on this match. During the conversation, the woman asks if he knows why the duel even happened, and he replies that he was invited by a girl with blue hair, and the guy agreed. Upon hearing this, the woman immediately falls in love with him and proposes to be friends, which greatly annoys the main character who hears all this. Suddenly, the isolation zone is activated on the 2-tiered stage. The director approaches and explains that the correct name is Dream World, and he transforms real events into something similar to dreams. In the background, a student with blue hair explains that in this world, it doesn't matter what injury an opponent gets. In fact, even if the attack was fatal, After the arena is turned off or the participant leaves it, the guy returns to normal. The host happily announces that this year the school principal himself will be the leader, not Zest. The professor says that even as a wizard he would like to keep a close eye on this game. Meanwhile, Kadena focuses on the fight, and the director explains, "To win, one of the participants must either surrender or be knocked out of the fight." The man also explains that using a full-pressure cannon is prohibited, because the dream sphere is as strong as the protective barrier. After this warning, Dist smiles and announces that the fight can begin. Hearing this, the Sun Noble prepares to use his water attack. However, Reese manages to stop it with his shield. The impressed host says that Latos' magical attack was blocked, and this is truly amazing, since only defensive magic was used. The people in the room begin to wonder how a magician who practices protective magic even dared to enter this school. At this point, Alfie realizes that the main reason everyone despises protective magic is that it wastes magical energy very uneconomically. Attribute magic works by using magical power and releasing it. Protective magic works like this. You gather magical energy and build a wall with it, but it's not very effective. In this case, attribute magic requires a minimum of energy, approximately 1 unit, while protective magic requires about 3 or 4 units. But protective magic is simpler, so it's perfect for children to learn how to protect themselves. Deep in his thoughts, the narrator turns to his commentator. Nervous, Alfie says that common sense won't help here, and that it's better to just watch and everything will become clear. At the same time, the boy with blue hair keeps attacking, while Reese defends herself the whole time. Giving it his all, he launches an attack called Water Grenade, which causes a powerful explosion and downpour. But when the smoke clears, he sees that the attack did not damage the hero's shield at all. The most interesting thing is to see how the entire audience is delighted. Even the presenter does not hold back her emotions and says that this is the first time she has seen a shield that can withstand such a powerful attack. Curious, she asks Alfie if Lovis has much magical power, but her friend replies that she doesn't. Meanwhile, the school principal says he has studied this issue extensively and believes the secret may lie in the structure itself. Lightheart explains that this is a formation called a honeycomb structure. It has the property of absorbing impacts coming from one direction. He further explains that the barrier panels are aligned to form hexagonal pillars, and when this is repeated several times, the entire structure is formed. The result is an incredibly complex magical shield, consisting of as many as 308 layers of such barriers. The woman, surprised, asks, "Why did you have to make it so complicated?" The guy replies that it's obvious. As a result, to create this barrier, only a quarter of the magical power that was needed before is required. This news shocks everyone, teachers, students, and even the narrator himself. Then Disc thoughtfully says that now he wonders how this student was able to use so much magic in such a complicated way. Continuing to explain, Alfie says that his friend can create a magic circle so quickly through constant training and hard work. Everyone is still in awe of the hero's incredible abilities, but Lightguard believes that this does not bode well. Hearing this, Reese gets annoyed and asks why his friend is acting so differently than before. The prodigy believes that some teachers noticed this boy's talent, while others did not, because his friend is very difficult to communicate with. Suddenly, the boy with blue hair turns to Lovis and says that the exam results were quite expected for him. But then he releases a huge stream of water, saying that a duel is not the same as an exam. He confidently says that defensive magic cannot attack, so Reese can never win. At this point, Latos begins to attack. Annoyed, the blue-haired student says the guy won't do anything to him. Smiling, the hero calls his opponent stupid for thinking that defensive magic cannot be used for offense. The freshman quickly jumps towards his opponent, catching him by surprise. Offensive magic is when you cast spells to hit your opponent. Thinking about this, the main character creates a shield and says that powerful deep magic is quite effective. The main thing is to hit it correctly. With a mocking smile, he reassures his opponent, saying that he doesn't need to be afraid, because he's not going to finish him off. At this moment, Lovis hits the spoiled boy hard in the chest, seeing his opponent writhe in pain. The guy says that it seemed to him as if something solid was covering everything there. A plate falls from Latos' body. Then the freshman prepares to strike another blow. The blue-haired student quickly uses his water control ability to retreat, but his opponent is also quickly closing the distance between them. The narrator is amazed by the hero's incredible speed and asks if this is another of his special abilities. But Alfie says that's not the case. Back in the arena, Reese tries to hit his opponent again, and as a result he tears his clothes. At this point, bubbles appear. This left Lavis completely confused and embarrassed. Meanwhile, the witch appears at the top of the arena and notices that all the attention is on her student. But when she looks more closely, she notices that something is wrong with the boy. Back to the fight, the newbie asks if this is a dirty trick. They wonder if this is some kind of dangerous weapon. At this moment, Laos realizes that his opponent is paralyzed, Without thinking, he immediately prepares his magical attack. And literally by a hair's breadth, the guy manages to dodge. At this moment, the guy activates his shield and asks for a pause. Watching the battle, the narrator notices that the situation seems to have changed. Everything is happening more slowly, and the parties have switched roles. Latos says that his opponent cannot escape, and explains that he did not cast the spells randomly, but thoughtfully. He is surprised and delighted by how this love has surrounded him. His opponent uses the skill Water Balloon Trap, giving all his strength. Latos says that the shield will not be able to protect against attacks from several sides at once. He launches a full-scale attack, and an explosion erupts in the center of the battlefield. Exciting, isn't it? The announcer explains. All the magic Latos have been doing up until now is creating puddles around the guy. Even with a strong attack from Noble, Reese manages to defend himself with a powerful version of the protective barrier. Although the boy smiles, he admits that he was scared by that attack. The irritated blue-haired boy notices that it didn't produce any results. At this point, Alfie explains that this barrier is also made in the shape of honeycombs. Disty remembers Zest saying, the student's overall magical power was below this level. The director, trembling with excitement, suspects that the hero is hiding something else. The protagonist gets nervous and begins to wonder, wasn't it a mistake to continue this duel? Shocked, Love suspects that Latos has simply been pretending to be the eldest son of the Knork clan all this time. Not knowing what to do, he realizes that someone at school definitely knows about this. He quickly glances at Director Dist, whose face reveals nothing. They meet eyes, and the man signals the boy to look up at the sky. He does this and realizes that the director meant the dream world. Seeing such a situation, the genius wonders what is happening, because his friend is behaving very strangely. Smiling, Dist understands. As soon as they took off their bib, something has already changed in this world, because he is the principal of this school. This man was ahead of his time, had a special watch list, and was the only one who knew about the Latos situation. Because of this, he began to be criticized with particular zeal. With a stern look, the principal says that he will protect his students, but that is why they must fight and show their true potential. Back in the fight, Reese looks worried as he can't take his eyes off his opponent's airbags. Meanwhile, Lotta thinks how he will be able to overcome this big obstacle from the protagonist. Without hesitation, he decides to use the water that is already inside the barrier. Glancing out of the corner of his eye, the boy realizes he's in trouble. A powerful jet of water is directed at the hero, throwing him high into the air of the arena. Many of us realize that he had failed the exam, and even when he's almost exhausted and ready to give up, somehow he feels better than ever before. While still in the air, Libas realizes that a new attack is coming at him. Zest is amazed that the boy possesses complex water control techniques that are used only in the Ganoark family. This movement is called the Dragon Wave. Nervous, Leda says he's going to throw his opponent out of the arena. The commentator says, the newbie finally went all in and asked if the winner had been determined yet. At this moment, the hero realizes that his opponent is right. He will not be able to stay in the air. At the same time, the water dragon rushes at the enemy, but he uses the ability to deflect attacks. This surprises Latos, because in her opinion, this kind of magic shouldn't work. However, the guy uses this magic as a launching pad. Then, using this as a push, he plummets down to the ground in a matter of seconds. It all happened so quickly that even the host didn't realize what had happened. Not understanding anything, she asked if it was some kind of teleportation magic. Meanwhile, the principal is pleased to notice that the boy used the same trick in the exam against the professor. It's about using your reflection as a support and thus launching yourself forward, like a bullet. DST understands that he can fly in any direction like this, and that he had a hard time during training. Smiling ominously, the director says that the owner is crazy and a terrible person. Meanwhile, she eats and watches the fight, remembering how she first met her student when he fell into the forest. Watching her student, she says that he has been flying since the very beginning. At this moment, the hero prepares for a direct confrontation with Latos. Seeing this, Alfie says there's no time to even discuss the fight, because that's where it ends. In this situation, the water dragon has still not disappeared, and the winner has not yet been determined. An excited Reese declares that this time he will jump in and deliver the decisive blow. But during the fight, the Lotus's airbags deploy again, which confuses Lovis. The main character freezes, realizing that he can't just rush at the water dragon again. He is shocked and thinks it is simply impossible to do. When the dragon approaches, but he quickly changes his mind and with a strange expression on his face says he's tired of thinking, then uses a reflection spell. Noticing what the newcomer is about to do, Dist exclaims that this is not allowed. Reese concentrates intensely and uses his magic weapon. It is powerful enough to throw Lato far away. At that moment, the boy realizes that this is completely wrong. If the young man is thrown back, everyone will immediately see the airbags. However, when the boy emerges from the dome, his wound heals quickly. So, the boy with the blue hair was caught by the principal. The narrator then announces that the outcome of the duel is already known. Reese won this fight. Smiling, the disc rejoices at the idea of a magic cannon. Seeing the student being applauded, the old woman remarks that she didn't train him enough because the boy was distracted by the airbags. At this point, the narrator confesses to the prodigy that she did not understand what happened at the end of the duel. Alfie tries to explain something, but he can't get it out. At that moment, Will appears and asks for a seat for his students. The man says the next one will be the prodigy match. Meanwhile, the nerd is angry because the freshman really turned out to be the best student, just like he said. And next to her stands another girl, looking at the winner with admiration. Seeing this, Kadena realizes that she has just witnessed the boy's first fan. In the arena, the main character is congratulated on his victory, and the audience also applauds and thanks Latoye for his efforts. The announcer announces that there will be a break now while the arena is being prepared, and the next fight is Alfie. After a while, the hero approaches the director and asks what is happening. Here he is referring to the surprise that occurred during the duel. At this moment, Kadena sees Reese talking to the director. The man explains that Laos attends this school as the future head and eldest son of the Hanork family. The newcomer asks confusedly about airbags, but the man replies that the documents have been checked many times and no errors were found. The guy asks if Latos has any brothers or sisters, and Disti replies that he had an older brother who died 10 years ago, and he also has a younger sister. After thinking about it, the guy begins to wonder if her family is forcing her to pretend to be the eldest son, and this annoys him. He says that some things related to that family are hard to explain, and Reese doesn't necessarily have to tell anyone about it. Then Lovi says that he understands that, but he just can't understand why the director allowed this application. However, the man denies that he himself would have interfered with it. Smiling, he says that Latos still has a lot of talent, and if he hadn't entered this school, that talent would simply have disappeared. Then the man smiles even more strangely and tells the hero that he also has high hopes for his abilities as a disciple of the great sage. Changing the subject, the director notes that preparations for the duel arena should be almost complete, so the boy says goodbye to him. The director thinks to himself that he can't wait any longer. He understands that now Reese will show his strength more and more while studying at this school. While thinking about this, Disterberg suddenly realizes something. The man wonders if everything will become clear if he attacks the boy now. But he quickly changes his mind, because as the school principal, he cannot attack a student while performing his duties as a teacher. At this moment, a second self appears, asking Dist if he is really just the director. His other personality says that he could learn the great secrets of the stage if he gave up his unique role. Then it asks the man to look closely at the freshman. The guy stands with his back to him, as if deliberately showing his defenselessness and urging him to come closer. The man is delighted to realize that the disciple of the great sage is indeed very scary. Just as he is about to lose control, someone suddenly knocks on the door. Stammering, the principal asks Lovis to let the visitor in, thinking to himself that he is unlikely to actually attack the student. A woman approaches the door, knocks, and quickly enters the room. The guy is a little confused, but quickly decides not to argue because he wants to end this conversation as soon as possible. After finding out who came, even the director becomes curious about who exactly came. Diest understands that the girl is infatuated with the boy, but quickly says that it is not yet time for them to meet in person. The man abruptly changes his tone and facial expression, comes closer and says that he will now give one piece of advice. At this point, Reese walks down the hallway and wonders if the director really had no intention of killing anyone. Love wonders if the headmaster is angry because he used the magic cannon in the duel, but quickly realizes that it must be something else. After walking through the corridors, he finally reaches the room he needs. This is the room where Latos rests. The girl apologizes. She says that bad things keep happening to her family. This upset her, because she still had to remain the head of the Genevark household. The girl says she's really sorry, but the freshman quickly replies that it's okay, because such apologies won't improve his mood. When she realized that her former rival was in her room, she is completely confused and blushes with shame. Surprised, she asks how long she was unconscious, and the hero replies that very little time has passed, because the fight hasn't even started yet. After looking at Laudos's condition, he says that it seems that she is not injured and is fine. The girl, a little embarrassed, admits that she could not have imagined how powerful protective magic could be if it was used well. She behaves very modestly. She admits that thanks to him she realized how immature she still is, because before she considered herself the strongest. However, she changes her expression and starts joking with the guy, saying that it's not the end yet. She confidently says that she may have lost today, but sooner or later she will still defeat him. Smiling, Reese says she is usually a positive person and thinks it is unwise to interfere in family problems. But the mood quickly changes when the newcomer remembers that he will never again be able to admire those airbags he saw before. Suddenly, Latos reaches out and says that she hopes they will continue to be good rivals, and also that she would like to become a good friend to him. Seeing this, the main character is very excited and happy about the idea. Looking at his rival, he wonders if she really wants to be friends, because he knows who she really is, but he can't believe that she was always so nice. The hero, losing his mind, says that she will now spend her whole life as a man. So the girl replies that maybe she's asking too much, not wanting to miss such an opportunity. Reese shakes the girl's hand and says that he would be happy to be friends with her. He says that he enjoyed competing with her, and that he will someday be her rival again. Hearing this, the girl blushed, and the boy couldn't take his eyes off her cute face. Luis, a little awkwardly, says that they can be friends to a certain extent, because during the duel he noticed good qualities in her, which surprises her. She asked Barca if he meant her magic, and the boy thought he had to hide the fact that he knew she was a girl. The newcomer nervously confirms and asks if she remembers how they agreed that the loser would be punished. He remembers Zest saying that the punishment would be cleaning the schoolyard, and it's just huge. The guy, being a good person, says that Alfie would have helped him too if he had lost. Therefore, in Latos' situation, he himself offers her his help. But Reese immediately panicked, realizing he would never have said such a thing if she were a man, and began to worry if she had noticed. Laughing, she says that Lovis probably didn't even know about it. Water has a cleansing power, so such a punishment is not terrible. He complains that for her it is not a punishment at all. But she denies that the guy could still count on his friend's help. While they are talking, a duel begins in Alpha. Smithin, the host, admits to rooting for the prodigy, and the professor advises her to just do her job. Looking at his opponent, the prodigy wonders who he is. Annoyed, the boy with the short haircut says his name was called out, and then Alfie remembers that he had already checked him. He only had good grades. The entire campus was discussing Reese's duel, and it was at this time that a bespectacled student went to the prodigy's room to challenge him. Adjusting his glasses, the guy with the bowl-shaped haircut tells his opponent that he already knows his secret. The hero and the girl run through the corridors. She apologizes for being late, but Lovis says it's not her fault and thinks that maybe the fight is already over. A girl appears along the way while Kadena watches everyone. The girl simply exclaims that she has finally found him. She introduces herself as Muriel Woodrow and says that she is also a first-year student, just like him. The girl grabs his hand without hesitation. She boldly places his hand on her chest and asks him out, shocking everyone around her. The girl says she wants to go for a walk with Lovey. Then she presses his hand even harder against the airbag, which surprises everyone around even more. Reese realizes that this feeling is like something very heavy is being passed through his hand. He feels as if he has been hit with a huge mace. Suddenly, Kadena and Latos intervene to stop this awkward situation. They ask the girl what she was doing. Latos then notices Kadena, who explains that she was just passing by. Kadena asks the girl what she did, but Muriel replies that it was just a smart move. She confessed everything herself. She says that it has been known since ancient times. Men have a weakness for curvaceous forms. The geek asks if she means that a man falls in love after rubbing against an airbag, and Muriel confirms it. Latos addresses lovers who seem to be immersed in a deep trance. Without hesitation, she splashes water in his face, which immediately brings him to his senses. This annoys him, but the girl asks why he doesn't attack Muriel, even though Reese doesn't seem to remember anything. Meanwhile, Woodrow says she was impressed by both of their performances and how skillfully they used protective magic. Kadena agrees that there is no point in dating such a perverted and disgusting man, but his fan disagrees. The girl wonders if the first-year student has any more secrets about protective magic, and says she wants to know everything about it. But the boy says it's hard for him to tell others. Then Muriel explains that this is why they should become a couple. He realizes in shock that this is not at all the popularity he expected, and Latos complains that they are standing too close. The guy with the glasses prepares for a fight. Alfie remembers his words and is sure that this guy can't possibly know about his secret of reincarnation. The guy with the pot-shaped hairstyle recalls that since arriving in the capital, he has constantly seen recipes that he already knew from his past life. He starts thinking, and suddenly Bulkut is also someone's reincarnation. Meanwhile, the boy says he will see his revenge through to the end. He notes that as an opponent, he seems to want to show everyone that he really is a weakling. Hearing this, Lightguard feels his hopes shattered, and the narrator already chooses a side and says, "The mob insults a genius and must remember where he belongs." Looking around, Reese says it's a great place to watch the match, so Latos warns that he is still being watched. Listening to the words of the boy with glasses, the girl with blue hair wonders, is Lightheart really weak if he has all four elements? The protagonist declares that this battle will show how strong the hero of the future is. Kadena believes that there are very few mages and legendary heroes who have all four abilities. She remembers people saying that if a person has 3 special traits, it's a sign of genius, but she couldn't imagine that someone could have even 4. Annoyed, she thinks, This guy is a threat. She can't afford to underestimate him if she wants to be the best. At this point, several girls, blushing, begin to happily cheer on the monster with 4 abilities. Very irritated by what he saw, the boy mutters that he hopes his friend's face will be disfigured by a magic bullet. Inside the arena, the prodigy looks intently straight into the eyes of his childhood friend. Then he smiles a sly smile. Are you nervous? Lovis wonders if Alfie is even feeling the tension from his opponent. During the fight, Zest asks if everyone is ready, and adds that it would be great if it were over quickly. At this moment, the professor announces the start of the fight, and the boy with the bullseye haircut immediately begins to cast a spell. He shoots a fireball rapidly. The announcer notes that both fighters started with the same attack, and this is impressive. But the prodigy immediately responds with a water balloon. Then he immediately launches a wind projectile. And finally, he throws a stone ball, but the mob manages to stop it. Seeing such talent, the narrator says that he is a real prodigy. This is amazing. His 4 characteristics are really as the rumors said. She also says that he is a good-looking guy and has 4 important qualities, so she wants to marry him. Back in battle, Alfie manages to dodge another attack from his opponent. Smiling, the guy with the bullhorn says that he shouldn't be underestimated. To the narrator's surprise, the boy simultaneously launched a medium-strength flame arrow spell. Zest is also impressed and thinks this year's freshmen are especially talented. The guy with glasses understands that Alpha Lightheart truly has all 4 of these qualities. While fending off another attack, he thinks that having 4 attributes doesn't mean true strength. Let me explain it more simply. A magic circle is something like a separate language for each property. That is, if a person has 4 characteristics, they need to train 4 times more than usual. He then claims that an ordinary person, even if talented, would never be able to do this, and the result would be mediocre. Feeling overconfident, he declares that his opponent has no chance against a master who possesses at least 1 strong trait. He thinks that no one knows about the servant the genius brought to the school. The guy with glasses suggests that the main character came at the behest of Lightheart to stand out among the others. He begins to piece everything together: the flashy appearance, the destruction of the target for a test of strength, and the mess in the dining room. He then says that it was a special plan to divert all the anger away from Alfie so he wouldn't be exposed. Adjusting his glasses, the magical Rockley says that only he is smart enough to understand all this. And all this became possible only thanks to his special way of challenging a newcomer to a duel. Because the guy with the short haircut is sure, a genius will never refuse a bright duel in front of everyone. It's a matter of image. When he launches several fireballs, the opponent simply laughs uncontrollably, as if he has completely lost his mind. The host notes that both constantly neutralize each other's magic. Let's analyze how the battle went. Wild looks a little confused by his student's behavior. Mocking him, the boy with the bull's horn says that the prodigy has only been using the wind element for a long time and asks why he doesn't use water. He says he could gain a great advantage over those who possess the fire element if he flooded everything around him. But with a suspicious smile, he asks if all a genius is capable of is merely replicating the speed of his projectiles. Will says that it looks like his student is going to use a complex spell called Fire Spear. Preparing for a new attack, the student wonders why Alfie doesn't use his water magic at the same time as him. Mocking him, he says that it's impossible. After all, a genius needs to be able to control 4 elements at once. The young talent instantly activates his protective wall. Covered in sweat, Rockley thinks that his opponent's wall of wind can only protect against magical elemental attacks. So he quickly decides to shoot a fire arrow straight into the wall. At this moment, all the spectators rise from their seats, as soon as everyone understands something. But even so, the student is still confident that this victory is his merit. He says he will open everyone's eyes, and his bride will understand everything too. Are you looking forward to such a future? The idiot decides to take a chance and goes all in, using a fiery flash. However, all fairies can use powerful magic from 4 different elements. Seeing this, the host simply goes crazy with delight. Wills, I'll tell you honestly, this is just a really cool talent. He explains that the prodigy changed the construction of the magic circles around him. But that wouldn't be enough, so he still has the speed and accuracy of his shots. He admits that it was difficult for him to look him in the eye during the exam. After analyzing this, Zest claims that it is actually a 4-fold projection. In addition to being able to change structure, it also simultaneously boosts all 4 stats twice. It's a real monster. Reese says he already knew this, but still doesn't understand how his friend was able to pull it off. Going back a bit, Alfie explains. Each characteristic has its own magic circle, like a separate language. He compares it to receiving letters in different languages, and you need to answer each of them correctly at the same time. Returning to the present, the hero is scared and says that it is even scarier than his magic. Meanwhile, the boy with the bowl-cut hairstyle froze in place, his legs shaking. He denies the obvious and says that the guy is up to something again. To this, Lightheart replies that he was simply playing with the illusions of the guy with the glasses and knows perfectly well how weak he is. He says that there is a talentless person who managed to bypass him, and that he can no longer catch up with ordinary efforts. Smiling ominously, he warns, the opponent will be able to resist only one magical property. Radiating eerie energy, the genius gives his opponents several deadly options to choose from, one from each element. Crying, the bespectacled student says that the genius is happy because his future is already secured. After that, he bows his head to the ground and surrenders, recognizing Alfie as the winner. That day, 2 sparks caused a fire, and it was because of this that the fights became even more fierce. After some time, the student walks into the post office, and here 2 classmates are discussing how delicious Reese's candies are. Hearing this, the student becomes very annoyed, and then learns that the next battle is about to begin. You don't become a magician in one day, so the main character never misses his morning workouts. But something unexpected happens. When he sees that his most loyal fan has fallen asleep right on the grass, he approaches her to wake her up, but it doesn't help. At this moment, he notices one of the airbags, which he had already touched earlier. Love restrains itself so as not to do stupid things. Worried, he wonders if his right hand moves on its own, on automatic. Restraining himself, the hero wonders, is Alfie making his strange poses to keep his own madness under control? But suddenly a guy appears and asks not to be compared to him. The guy awkwardly says he's not going to touch her, and his friend replies that if he does, she'll immediately feel sorry for him. Approaching, the prodigy asks his friend if it was the girl who asked him out. He is confused and doesn't understand why he turned her down. After all, ever since they lived in the village, he has always said that he wanted a girlfriend. Reese says the feelings weren't mutual, but quickly turns the conversation around and challenges his friend to a fight. Taking off his coat, Alfie asks if he's angry about not being able to let off steam at martial arts training. Without hesitation, he rushes at his friend, but he quickly blocks his kick. Smiling, the hero says that today he will teach this boar a good lesson. He then tries to strike back, but the boy easily dodges and asks if there will be a fight without magic. His friend confirms. His friend says that if they use magic, the entire square will be destroyed. While they fight, Lovis asks his friend if he thinks humans are better at protective magic. The prodigy replies that it has to do with how his friend is thought of at school. The situation here has improved significantly. To prove it, he says he transformed from a pesky stray dog into a street monkey who shows off tricks. Then he says that Latos, who held up well against the boy's fierce attacks, actually deserves more praise. Reese keeps trying to strike, but he is working at full capacity. He says he is still far from reaching his goal. He dodges again. I ask him if he's afraid of staying at this school forever. They look each other straight in the eyes, and it's clear that they have equal strength. Both use the same type of punch. At this point, Lightheart begins to remember what the teacher said while his friend was in the duel. Somewhat satisfied, the prodigy tells the protagonist that more and more people are noticing his talent. After the fight, the prodigy tells his friend that he is going to the dining room. Then, after he enjoys someone's attention, he inadvertently lets something slip. At this moment, his most devoted fan wakes up. Getting up, she tells the freshman that she knows how he spends his morning and asks to see. But he replies that he's already done everything. Changing the subject, the girl says that she will now tell us about her real strategy. She intentionally exposed her vulnerable body to arouse Reese's desire to touch her, and then use it against him as blackmail. But when the girl looks at herself, she sees no trace that this even happened. Looking suspiciously at the boy, she asks what kind of paper he has in his hands. Reese replies that it's just a meeting, and that he dropped it on the floor. After some time at the training campus, Zest says that duels are very popular now, so the campuses are being used more and more. The teacher is constantly talking. Then he notices someone yawning and immediately asks if she's getting enough sleep. Seeing the students laughing, the man explains that sleep is very important for a magician, because it is during sleep that magical power is restored. He says that during breathing, a person receives external energy that has various properties, and the best way to absorb it from oneself is during sleep. Then he says that perhaps this is why the girl lacks the magical power for an important duel. Then the class begins, and the task is to hit the target that has just been restored. Focusing, Alfie utters a spell, asking the dragon to give him the strength to defeat his enemy. He quickly creates several magic circles at once, casting a spell with the desired property ahead of time. He delivers a powerful blow using all 4 elements at once: earth, water, wind, and fire. Even with this much power, the target remains unharmed. Feeling excited, Zest is already wondering who will be next. Upset, he begins to think about what he can do to make things better. Alfie asks to try again, and the smart girl and Lovis want their turn too. This annoys the professor. Then he points at the main character and says that next time he will make him pay if he breaks something. One of the students starts to get annoyed because he is getting too much attention. Unable to resist, he calls the boy. He glares at the freshman and immediately challenges him to a duel, without making him wait long. The guy is confused. He doesn't remember who this student is, and he says he will be free the next day. After a while, Reese goes to some event. Joyful, he walks along with his most devoted admirer, childhood friend, and Latos. The girl is a little worried, says that this pastry shop is very famous, and asks if she can go inside. The hero says that his friend has a free ticket for 4 to a sweet cake buffet. At that moment, Latos notices Alfie and asks who he is. Alfie replies that he used to sell recipes here. Meanwhile, Lovis and Muriel grow closer through their shared love of sweets. The main character shouts that it's worth using the ticket and skipping the line, which only makes everyone around even more nervous. The newcomer looks sternly at Latusa and warns, there will be no mercy on the battlefield. In the background, Kadena can be seen hiding and thinking. She could never have imagined that her enemy Reese would turn out to be a guy who loves sweets. She uses a wind spell from the Alfare genus. This makes her presence invisible, but she feels awkward because some strange girl is watching her. Suddenly, someone loudly calls out to Reese loves. This person uses a stone element spell, but the hero manages to protect himself with a shield. The bully approaches and grabs his tie. Noid Latos asks the newcomer what he is thinking, and reminds him that there are many innocent people around. The angry bully demands to explain how he could ignore his challenge and instead roam the streets. The same student is very angry now. He's about to rush forward, but someone grabs his arm and stops him. He gets angry and demands to know who it is. He says he is from the Amos family. Unfortunately, it is at this moment that he realizes that one of the royal guards from the capital has grabbed his arm. The frightened bully simply apologizes. But without mercy, the knights rush at him altogether. Lightguard asks if his friend broke his promise to that guy, but he explains that it was all just a misunderstanding on his part. The offender, with a face as battered as a cookie, admits that he was wrong. Sweaty? The main character simply thanks one of the guards for his hard work. Then the old man says he has a guess as to what happened, but wants to hear all the details, so he invites the newcomer to the guard post, because he was the one who was able to keep the situation under control by using protective magic. Reese drops to his knees in despair because he couldn't taste the free buffet. Enraged, he challenges the bullies to a duel to share today's pain with them. While Latos doesn't even remember the guy's name, the only person who still remembers Barca is a nerd hiding nearby. The next day, while having tea, Laos recalls hearing rumors about yesterday's events, and asks if Reese is really going to duel Barca. And the guy tells his friend not to worry, because he can easily beat up this loser right now. He called him a noisy brawler, got very angry about the spoiled buffet, and Alfie is also surprised how his friend dared to use his ticket and at the same time think that the table belonged to him. The shameless boy replies that everything Alfie owns belongs to him too. His name is Jan. He is a cheeky character from a Japanese cartoon called Doraemon. The friends were confused by this image, and Alfie asked them to forget about it because he accidentally revealed something from his past life. Unexpectedly, Muriel appears right at the table, and Reese tells her not to do that again. Especially not to appear from under the table, because it will be very difficult to explain later what she was doing there. She says she heard about the duel with that cheeky boy and asks if it was with Alfie. Alfie immediately denies it, saying no one here wants to get screwed. Then the girl asks what happened, and Reese tells her that the angry boy used magic right on the street. But the duo will be gone in the near future, as Bratz will spend a month in prison as a result. Seeing this, the lazy girl immediately loses interest in the conversation. Then she turns to Latos and asks why he hasn't challenged Reese to a duel again. And he says that after losing a duel, you can't fight again for a while. Yet the guy understands that even when that time passes, he still won't be able to defeat him. His chances of winning are still low, so he plans to spend more time with Reese to understand him better. Suddenly, the girl changes the subject and asks who the third guy is who sits next to her the whole time. She didn't even know she was talking to Alfie. Upon learning that he possesses these 4 qualities, she is very surprised. But Reese does not like that his friend has become so popular. Muriel is still amazed by the boy's abilities with the elements and apologizes for being distracted and not noticing that it was him. Latos takes the opportunity to ask why she is more interested in protective magic and not the 4 basic elements. The girl explains that this elemental ability is very rare, but Reese's power is even rarer. The shameless joker immediately asks what she thinks of his friend's irresistible beauty, and hears in response that she is not interested in it at all. This pleases him. Finally, someone who is not driven by beauty. But Alfie immediately punches him in the face. The guy asks why they hit him, and his friend replies that he thought he would protect himself with a barrier. Then Reese calls him to deal with it like a man, saying, "Let's solve this with our fists." Muriel decides to ask if it was Alfie who challenged her to a duel, but the coward says that was not the case. She asks why he doesn't do it. Then the guy replies that he doesn't see any chance of winning. At this moment, Cardina approaches and says that she accidentally overheard their conversation. She says she learned that these two are not just rivals, but also from the same village, although they have never challenged each other to a fight. And now she knows that the whole point is that famous Alfie is just a coward. But the guy isn't going to keep quiet, so he asks her if she knows how many times he's already fought that fool Reese. He glares at her and says she doesn't know anything about this, and shouldn't pretend to know everything, especially since she's never challenged him before, so she's the real coward here. This annoys the girl, and she continues to argue with him. They look at each other so intently that it seems like sparks are about to fly between them. This makes Reese feel unbeatable, but Latos says no, and no one wants to fight him anyway. Later, at the training ground, the boy says he needs to practice his magic, but he wonders why those two were following him and looks at the two blue-haired stalkers who are bored in front of him. Latos says that he had just had the same idea, but since he was already there, he decided to ask a few questions about his magic. He asks Muriel to confirm his words, but the girl says that's all nonsense. She just wanted to be closer to Reese because she thinks that if she spends more time with him, maybe feelings will develop. Lova says that if they are interested in his protective sorcery, he can share a couple of secrets and begins to cast spells. But when Latos tries to imitate his friend and fold into a hexagon, Reese explains that once you've created one, you should try to make 6 or even more. But the blue-haired woman thinks that's unrealistic. His friend explains that he needs to do this with each finger to form a honeycomb-like barrier. In addition, the width and size of each hexagon must be the same. Seeing Lato's reaction, he asks if something happened. Lato replies that nothing happened, just surprised that he agreed to teach him so easily. Reese explains that he doesn't hide his technique, he just wants people to embrace protective magic. Lato thinks these are very nice words, but Muriel says that he is still hiding a lot of things. In any case, the boy tells his friend to continue training to better control his magic, and he will practice on his own. Lato keeps trying to make a hexagon out of the shapes, and Muriel keeps saying she doesn't like it. When asked why, she can't explain. She shows that she has almost learned how to create a hex, but it is still very difficult for her. Since this is not an ordinary magic circle, each part must be controlled separately, and everything must be directed correctly. And this requires a special and precise skill. It's amazing how much patience it takes to make it all work. That's why she wants to learn even more about this magic. After hearing all this, Lato decides to ask if Reese is only interested in her magical power. Muriel looks at him suspiciously and asks what he wants to know, but the guy doesn't even understand what he meant. As she looks at her favorite train, Lotus's question starts to echo in her mind again. Meanwhile, we see a piece of Bark's past. He congratulates his brother on entering the School of Gifted Masters, and says that he will also enter there and become the best student. And his brother says that he is also the heir to the family legacy. His brother adds that he always dreamed of joining the Master Order of Magic, wanted to be accepted. This is a true feat that only the noblest people in these parts are capable of, and he wants little Barca to be with him. The boy runs after his brother, but suddenly stumbles upon something incomprehensible and begins to wonder what it is. He sees an image of Reese Lovis. The ground beneath him begins to collapse, and he falls into darkness. Waking up in a panic, he realizes that he is in prison. Realizing that it was just a dream, he gets annoyed because he remembers who really ruined it all for him. Later that night, Reese walks alone across the training field. He returned to the field because he had forgotten his uniform there. But as he was about to leave, he heard a strange noise and sneaked over to see what was going on. He meets Cardina, who is already summoning her magic circles, and shoot at multiple targets at once, but one of them still remains on his feet, so she prepares the final shot. A very strong gust of wind finally knocks him off his feet and shatters him into pieces right on the ground. But after that, she gets very tired. Someone approaches her and says that it was a really cool attack. It was Reese Loves who apologized to her for spying. The girl says that his existence is so insignificant that it doesn't even affect her. Reese asks where she gets so much energy at a time like this, and Cardina replies that she's not interested in listening to his remarks, and that she's already done with everything. While walking and looking at her nose, she is tripped by a gust of wind and falls face down on the ground. But before she hits him, the guy jumps forward and cushions the blow, and also jokes that she must have real problems with her leg. Falling into his strong, firm embrace, she barely reacts. She only mutters quietly that the words about her being a coward don't affect her well-being in any way, although she really wanted to say it out loud right now. The girl says she doesn't like simple guys like him. As the eldest daughter in the family, she constantly feels pressure to be better and always stay on top. Because of this pressure, she works hard and constantly tries to be better. The problem is, while she's telling all this, poor Reese just wants to leave, but she won't stop talking. The problem is the position they are in. He feels as if a heavy crossbow is pressing and digging into his chest. The girl asks why he's even here, and how he manages to work so hard, even though he knows it's hard for him because of his lack of abilities, until he finally gets tired of it and he rises sharply and lifts the girl into his arms. Then he says that the easiest way to explain it is this: he is simply fascinated by magic without being tied to names, as a hobby, and he never considered it a disadvantage for himself. The girl looks at him with admiration, and Reese sets her down and says they will see each other again. He is glad that he was able to escape and adds, when she comes to her senses, she will definitely be very angry. He doesn't even suspect that she's actually up to something much worse. Now she finally understood why she hated him so much. The next day, Barca is told that a guest has come to visit him, and the boy wonders, who could have come? A mysterious hooded stranger says he needs help to defeat Reese Lewis. This interests the guy. The school principal herself speaks. She says she wants to give him some advice. She says attacking him is no problem, but first he needs to make someone his little pet. In the dueling coliseum, another daredevil challenges Lovis Reese, confidently declaring that his protective magic is worthless and he will prove it. The host announces an unexpected duel. A defender with magical abilities will compete against a mysterious opponent. Reese smiles broadly because he already knows he has nothing to worry about. Muriel approaches the scene, leaning on the iron crossbar in front of her to lighten her load a bit. She unexpectedly startles Latos and asks who is new to the fight. The guy says that after school, Reese was just challenged. Apparently, this was done by some short-sighted person who didn't see the fight between Latosa and Lovis and still doubted the rumors. The girl says she's glad she was there at the exact moment the fight started. Finally, the announcer announces the start of the match and asks Alfie, who is standing nearby, to share his impressions. But the boy says nothing. Extra? Yes, that's his name. He says he'll break through the defense with a medium-strength spell. But before he can attack, a burly madman appears in front of him, ready to pounce on him. In the background, all we can hear is the shock of defeat. Everyone is shocked that the fight ended so quickly with just one blow. Reese and his friends quietly leave the scene. Lato notes that the fight ended with one punch. Muriel says it was boring, and Alfie asks if his friend realizes how little free time they really have. He tries to justify himself, saying that the person who challenged him was just some guy who constantly mocked him and used mediocre magic. Alfie says that's why no one knows what his magic style is, and Reese asks if he should even worry about his reputation during a fight, and also asks what will happen if he loses because of that. As they approach school, he separates from his friends, and Latos asks where he is going. He replies that his friend left his bag nearby, so he is going to get it. Barzot approaches Reese and greets him, and tells him not to turn up his nose. Taking advantage of the fact that she wasn't the one who started the conversation, Love Ace asks the guy what it's like to spend a week behind bars, which really annoys him. But this does not cause any reaction, and this surprises the master of protective magic. He notices that he has more stamina. Then he takes his bag, and as he leaves the room, Barca says it will be tomorrow. Having understood the essence of the conversation, Reese agrees and says that they will decide everything in a duel, and this annoys the guy even more. He remembers the prison where the hooded man asked if he needed help to defeat Lovis. Barca asks, so if he doesn't listen to her, he'll lose. And the answer is simple. If he fights without any strategy, that's exactly what will happen. Moreover, it will be a very unpleasant experience. The boy prepares his sorcery to attack this figure, but she asks if he really plans to use magic while already in the cell. This makes him give up and ask her to leave. So the hooded woman asks if he saw the duel between Reese and Latos. The hot-tempered man asks what she means, and the woman is happy that she was right. She says she doesn't remember seeing him that day. She then hands over the pendant and explains that it is a phantom stone, a magical thing that can store a person's visual memories. She says she recorded the fight and is ready to let him watch it. Barca asks who she is and why she needs it. She says he doesn't need to know who she is, and her goal is the same as his, to defeat Reese Lewis. She also says that sitting there for a week probably isn't very pleasant, so she advises him to use this time to think of good strategies for the upcoming duel. Having taken the item in hand, Barca intends to use it to prepare his strategy. The next morning, Reese gets ready for her daily workout and begins warming up. Suddenly, as if out of thin air, Muriel appears and asks who taught him these moves. The guy tells her not to sneak up on him so quietly anymore. The girl asks if he learned this from his master at home, and the guy confirms. Muriel asks if she was a magician, and he replies that it's obvious. Watching his strange movements, the girl says that they seem to be specially invented to strengthen the body, but still doubts whether his teacher was really a magician. Reese replies that his teacher always said that many magicians neglect their bodies, which is why she dislikes them. Then Muriel asks if the technique he was showing her recently was taught to him by his master. The guy says that all this is thanks to the tough training he underwent. He spent days in the cold without sleep and suffered severe fatigue due to weakness. Just remembering it already makes the poor guy feel sick. Muriel asks about the Forest of Hades, which she heard was in his town and if he's ever been there. During the class, he agrees, because that's where he met the old woman. It was the place where he trained. The girl is surprised and asks if his master is a great sage. This confuses the boy and distracts him. He asks his friend how she knows this, and the girl explains that the professor who brought her here said that a great sage lives in the Forest of Hades. Reese says he can't ask her for a recommendation because his boss has very strange preferences for people. She doesn't even want to train Alfie, but Muriel doesn't care. The guy takes the moment to ask about the professor who brought her here. He asks if anyone accompanied her, and she replies that yes, because she is a simple girl. But right now she's not particularly interested in school. She only dreamed of staying home and learning magic, a true homebody and introvert. Her parents were merchants, so they had a good fortune, although they were not nobles. She was glad that her bookshelves were always full. Her parents couldn't even imagine their daughter studying in a regular school, so they hired a private teacher for her. And here's the surprise. It turned out that her teacher also studied at the school for magic geniuses. Of course, everyone was very surprised by this. At first he was kind and offered to help with advice, but everything changed when she reached a certain age. He forced her into the dormitory, and they did whatever it took to get her there. Reese notes that her words sounded very strange and even a little dangerous. She turns to the guy and asks if her story has somehow aroused him, but Lewis calmly replies that it won't, and she should stop these tricks. They sit on the ground, tired from their workout. He asks his friend if he regrets coming here, but Muriel says no, because now she has a very interesting topic to research. But Reese doesn't take it as a compliment. Still, her story seems familiar to him, and now he understands why. That's how he lived until he met the old woman and Alfie. He skipped classes and constantly practiced protective magic. And he wouldn't have ended up in that forest if it weren't for that coincidence. And his relationship with Alfie would have been completely different. Muriel takes advantage of her lover's distraction and tries to touch softly. The guy asks what she was trying to do. Poor thing. Walking around the countryside in nice clothes is fine, but when the brunette tries to kiss him, he gets scared. In reality, she just wanted to know where the scar on his cheek came from. Reese says that these scars are from training with that old woman. But the girl wonders, if the great sage is so strong, why can't he heal his own wounds? The guy replies that she's right. She healed the serious injuries after the accident so that not even a trace remained. But no matter how gentle the healing, there will always be a trace left to remind you of it. If you keep getting injured in the same place during training, you'll get a scar like this. And in fact, he has even more of these unpleasant marks on his body. Muriel touches the boy's face and says they are not disgusting at all. Because if he isn't real, then everything else about him can't be real either. Embarrassed, the guy says he understands everything and walks back. He makes up an excuse that it's too hot and it's better to cancel the morning workout. But the girl reminds him that he's not even halfway there. The guy tugs at his shirt a little, ties the collar, and when it doesn't work, he rips it open. Muriel notices a scar on his chest and asks what kind of training could have left such a mark. But the guy covers it up and tells her not to worry, saying it's nothing serious. She falls silent. But Reese asks not to tell anyone about it and to keep it a secret. His confidence makes her smile. To change the subject, she asks if he has a fight after school today, and he confirms it. Muriel says she doesn't believe he can lose, but he replies that he must win. The boy, like us, is surprised by these words. He tells her to come there so they can talk. Does the guy agree? And that same day at the Colosseum, the host, who had almost lost hope of seeing an interesting battle, announces that Reese is going out to fight again. Someone remarks that she sounds boring, and she replies that it's because she can't ask Alfie to comment today, because she already did it the other day. The magic circle of isolation has already been established. This fight will pit the already well-known Reese Lovis against his opponent. Their name isn't even worth mentioning. Everyone already knows how it will end because it's Barca. Everyone is looking forward to the fight, but some people didn't like the host's words. Latos asks Alfie if he thinks that guy can beat Reese, but the guy says it's hard to say. Because if everything goes according to plan, his friend will indeed win by a large margin. But something else could happen. Muriel sits down next to him and says that the guy will definitely win. Then Cadena sits down next to Latos and says that if she were in her place, she wouldn't make such a stupid statement. Even if Barca acts rudely, he is still noble and will not be like the others that Reese has already fought. Muriel says that Cadena has no reason to say that, and Alfie agrees that she is right. Lato asks him if it bothers him, and he replies that that's exactly what Reese said yesterday. And he hopes his friend isn't planning on doing anything crazy with his protective magic or anything like that. In any case, they will all learn the truth during this fight. Reese stands up. Now, it's not just about winning that's important to him. He wants to show everyone what protective magic can do, although everyone thinks that's all it is. In fact, for Lovis, this battle is his revenge for the cakes. Suddenly, a magic circle appears on his back, and wings are created. Everyone wonders where he got the wings on his back, and even his friends are shocked, including Cadena. Barca has no idea what's going on or what he's doing. This is no longer just a leap with a push-off from the magic of reflection. This is acceleration. Reese is hurtling forward at high speed, using all his strength to keep going. And when he gets to Barca, he delivers a powerful blow that raises a large cloud of dust. But to everyone's surprise, the opponent defends himself with his own special technique. And all because close combat is his strong point, and with one move he throws Reese far to the side. But this only turns the guy on even more before the fight. But before we find out how it all ended, let's remember what happened before the duel began. While the announcer spoke in her emotionless voice, others called Lovis a talentless clown, and demanded that this time he show something really interesting. Seeing this, Barca gets annoyed. It's always the same story with Reese. People laugh as if he just told the best joke in the world. The boy wonders why some people are special. Is it because of a magical talent that is passed down and developed in the family from generation to generation? Nobles tried to find people with talents at any cost, even if it meant taking in a commoner with certain abilities. But Reese was not like other commoners at all. Barca believes that his failure on the aptitude test was rigged. The device showed that he had no talent whatsoever. But even despite this, he became the best in the most prestigious school. And now it seems to him that everyone around him is just pretending. Fortunately, he noticed that among these people, there are still those who think correctly. And now Barca wants to show him who's in charge here and teach him a lesson so he understands the difference between them. At this moment, Reese accelerated sharply. The only thing he thought about was showing everyone that the nobles were the real magicians here. He is determined to do everything he can to overcome his ego and show everyone the truth. Their fists clash, and Bark has only one thought in his head: to show everyone what true strength is. But his earthen glove is cracking. The announcer is delighted, saying that Reese's punch almost made her heart stop. It looks like we're in for a tight, close-quarters fight today. Laos is surprised because it turns out that this noble guy is much smarter than they thought. But here, Alfie poses the question: how did Barca know how to counter acceleration if he had never seen Reese fight? Maybe it was because of his experience in close combat. At this point, Cadena asks if this is the same acceleration spell. But Muriel doesn't let her finish and immediately says, yes, it's the same one he used against Latos. Strangely, for some reason they have now switched places. The girl explains that the magic is to use reflection twice and aim them at each other to create a powerful explosion. Latos is surprised to see his friend using magic without a magic circle. Alfie notices how much Muriel has studied the subject, and Cadena remains silent, looking confused because she knows nothing. Meanwhile, the heat in the ring is getting hotter. Reese delivers an elbow strike and jokingly asks if his opponent has run out of steam. Barca tells him to shut up and, drawing a magic circle, demands that he not be treated like a commoner. He then uses the Stonewall spell and hits Reese with this blow. But the guy easily blocks this blow with one hand and gets annoyed when he sees his opponent running away. But Shliaktic incites him, saying, "Try to catch up with me." The young peasant suddenly breaks down and rushes straight at the noisy boy. But suddenly a stone wall grows in front of him. And because he's speeding, he flies right into the trap, exactly as Barca intended. Alfie was delighted to have managed to get everything done on time and accurately. But that wasn't the end of it. The hot-tempered guy uses his magic, creates a horizontal wall in front of him and tries to hit his opponent with it, but the opponent easily dodges it in the style of the Matrix. And finally, he's going to finish the guy off by creating another wall, but this time right under him. To escape, the boy uses reflection and pushes himself away, but that's not the end. Because at this very moment, Barca is preparing a stone ball in the arena. He takes a rock, turns it into a rocket, and throws it as hard as he can. Everyone is shocked, except for Muriel, who barely reacts. The host can't believe his eyes. What started as a close-quarters fight has suddenly turned into a battle at a distance. But as you would expect from a master of defensive magic, Reese is still unharmed. He admits that the trap with the two large stone walls was very successful. For him, this fight is becoming more and more interesting. The battle in the duel dome is raging, and in the head of young Barca, many plans arise simultaneously on how to win this duel. He's still confident he can win. The biggest problem isn't the defensive magic that caught him off guard, but the boy's incredible reaction speed. In general, there is nothing unexpected for him here. This first move almost surprised him, but he still managed to defend himself. The piece's hint probably helped. She is sure, if everything goes as she planned, the Barca guy will definitely win. The guy throws the meteorite stone again, but Reese smiles and jumps to the side to avoid the hit. When jumping, he literally becomes airborne and instantly lunges at his opponent, quickly closing the distance. Because of the angle at which he was moving, no wall could stop him. But the boy is not defenseless. He quickly draws a magic circle and launches an earth cannon. Reese defends by setting up his mitts and only takes part of the blow as he continues to move towards his opponent. This scares Barcelona because the guy is just crazy. He rushes into the attack with almost no defense. At the last moment, the noble puts up a stone wall, but Reese breaks it with his blow. But when he crosses to the other side, the opponent is no longer there. He didn't even have time to blink an eye when many stones flew in his direction, and he had to defend himself. It was Guy with the spear, and this annoyed Reese, because his opponent said he was good at close combat, but he himself attacked from a distance. The crowd watches the fight with rapture. Latos says it looks like he and his friend are just being played with, and Alfie agrees, it's true. Bars turned out to be a very strong opponent. Lovius really wants to close the gap, but the nobleman doesn't let him implement his lightning attacks. Kudina says that hotheads act very thoughtfully, and it is likely that they still have trump cards up their sleeves. But Muriel says that Barca is starting to get nervous, and adds that she noticed at the cake festival how that noblewoman was watching them, and now she is too protective of Barca. Kudina replies that this girl also often defends Reese, but the conversation changes when everyone mentions that Kudina was spying on them that day, to which the noble lady denies everything. Muriel says that last time they were at the bakery, this unfortunate girl was spying on them from behind the wall, and she's sure of it. The woman asks if she's sure she's not confusing her with someone else, but our lazy girl replies that she's not. It's impossible for two different people to have the same mug, be in the same place, and still look exactly like her. Those shoes she's wearing are impossible to mistake for anyone else's, and that's true. Latos even stood up and said that if the girl wanted cake, she just had to say so. But Cadena still thinks about how Muriel sensed her wind magic so quickly, and realizes that now she'll have to be careful around her. Meanwhile, in the fight, Reese is preparing to lunge again, and Barca is preparing to attack. That's the only way an ordinary person can get close to him. The guy rushed forward with all his might, and even when his opponent tried to create a stone wall to stop him, he didn't have time to do it. Barca defends himself with earthen gloves, but it looks like this time Reese has finally got him. With his protective sleeve, he declares that he will definitely not let him escape this time. Both tense their arms, preparing for a fight, and the real brutal battle begins. And eventually their blows meet, and both of them break their right gloves. But it's not over yet, and everyone knows it. Their fists collide again, and both left gloves are blown to pieces by the impact. Alfie understands this well. Even spells designed for this kind of fighting stop working when they reach their maximum. They both step back a little, and take the chance to summon your gauntlets again. Reese goes forward again and Barca defends, and the exchange of blows continues. Whoever creates their magic circles the fastest will win this battle. But of the two, Reese is still the better one. Alfie says he can see who will win this duel now. Bar angrily shouts at the boy not to underestimate him and creates a stone wall to push the boy away. Then he tries to move away, but Reese is not going to let him get away at all, and Noble sees him approaching again. Then he remembers what that mysterious figure told him earlier, when he said that this spell has a very short range and takes a lot of strength. The hooded figure says that's why she's giving him a chance to win. He then uses a new attack, Spiral, Giga, and Gaia's Spear. Reese instantly raises his shield, operating on automatic, and he can do it so quickly only thanks to his grueling training. But this is a wrong move. The old witch knows this and calls him a foolish student. As soon as the blow reaches the obstacle, it immediately pierces it. Finally, Bars has a chance to win, and he puts all his strength into this attack. That's victory. But suddenly the guy just cancels his magic. He lets the attack go straight at him. The opponent doesn't understand why he did that. But this is not the end. The guy is preparing to deliver a strong blow with his right hand. The magic cannon is a burst of energy that shatters the spear in front of it. Reese then approaches his opponent, and for the first time in the entire fight, Lanza hits his opponent with a simple punch in the middle of the chest. It makes even the bravest person feel nauseous, as if they had eaten something disgusting, and then simply fall to the ground without strength. And that's it. The fight is over. The winner was Reese Lovis, who gave us a fight we've never seen before. It was difficult for him at first, but he pulled himself together, leveled the game, and eventually won easily again. Victory and a brilliant performance. But the guy himself doesn't think so. For him, this fight turned out to be much harder than he expected. He still has a lot to learn. Finally, inside the school, Barca was resting. He wakes up and realizes that he is in the medical center, after which he is overcome with anger. He repeats several times how damn that guy is without any abilities. At that moment, a man in a hood appears and asks if he is angry because of the defeat. There's that nasty smile again. He doesn't even want to waste time arguing with the hero, but the creature thinks differently. It comes closer and asks if he's going to hit her back. But the guy says that she helped him a lot with her advice, and as a noble person, it would be unwise to do otherwise. But this person replies that if he causes any problems again, he will be kicked out immediately. The guy is annoyed, but still wants to ask this creature 2 questions. First, about Reese's acceleration. How did she guess he would use this ability if he hadn't used it during the last fight? The hooded one says that he knew how to use compressed energy to explode, so it was logical for him to apply the same principle to propel himself forward. Barca understands this, so he asks his second question. How did Gaia guess that the spiral gigallants would be able to break through his barrier? The hooded man says again that it's actually simple. She made several test models with a 100-fold structure. Then it was all trial and error. She asked the boy if he now understood how simple things could be. He said yes. It turns out that his obsession with winning wasn't enough. He had simply wasted his chance. But next time he's absolutely sure that he will defeat the guy. That mysterious figure asked the boy if he knows why she came to him. Barca puts his hand on his chest, takes off the pendant she gave him, and throws it to the woman. She instantly catches it on the fly. She says that this stone is too expensive to rent out and advises to be more careful, but the boy doesn't care. The woman then asks if he forgot to use the stone during the fight with him. The guy agrees and says he's sure the entire fight was accurately recorded. She leaves, humming to herself because she got exactly what she wanted. Seeing the woman's sinister smile, the guy asks what she's going to do about it, and the hooded figure replies that she only spoke about 2 questions. But she has already told him anyway. Her goal is to defeat Reese Lavis. He suddenly realizes that they had different goals from the very beginning. And finally he asks who she is. Meanwhile, on the training field, Reese was practicing alone, when he suddenly felt someone approaching. Seeing a projectile flying towards him, he instantly reaches out and activates his shield. He immediately realizes who it is and sees his teacher on the roof, who praises him for his quick reaction. He asks if the old witch is currently in the royal capital, calling her a great sage. But she says she actually does something a little different. But yes, she flies there every day with the power of Hades, which amazes the guy because of such a great distance, and he asks why. She says she hasn't tried all the sweets around yet, and the guy advises her not to let sweets ruin her age-old habit of being alone. The witch politician jokingly asks if he's jealous of sweets because she spends more time on them than on him. But he immediately reassures her. The real reason she goes there is to teach her student how to fight. The guy asks if she really wanted to see him fight, and she says yes, and praises him. He defended himself well from the previous attack, but she says he relies too much on his protective barrier. She assumes he saw the previous duel. She says that if you constantly run away from problems, it can backfire on you. If you get too caught up in it, something very serious can happen. She cites the last part of the duel that day as an example. In this situation, the barrier was completely unnecessary, as a magic cannon would have been enough to destroy Gaia's spear. She asks if the boy understood this, and her student replies that he did. At that moment, he became truly scared when he saw magic so close. The political witch doesn't miss an opportunity to mock him, noticing that the brave man is actually scared, and he says that he should thank his opponent for helping him understand. It's time to stop taking things lightly. Besides, the witch says that the flaws in his barrier have not yet been fixed. When she extends her hand, he says, "There are 2 of them. This duel has exposed 2 of his weaknesses." He scattered his weaknesses wherever he could, but no one around him noticed. Only the boy with 4 qualities and a few teachers guessed it. The guy replies that more people know about it than she thinks. When asked what exactly he means, he says, his rice grains are sprouting. Maybe it's stupid on his part, but he's much more interested in it after school. The director says that his work is sometimes very difficult. The teacher next to him hopes his trip was enjoyable, but he complains that he missed out on seeing Reese's duel. The teacher replies that it's nothing to worry about, and if he really wanted to see it, he could have just asked for help, because he watched the duel very closely, and now he will briefly tell all the details. The director says that he can always rely on zest. He accepts compliments, but he really doesn't care. The director says the fight was very spectacular, and his employee confirms it. He says Reese was a real monster. He acted cautiously at first, but then completely defeated his opponent. His boss replies that it seems like it, especially if you take the idea of a magic cannon and turn it into a way of moving. Such a technique cannot be mastered in a regular school, so he can't help but wonder what kind of hellish training that guy went through. Then the teacher decides to ask, if this famous sage is actually not that great, why does the principal stubbornly ignore Reese's efforts? But the unfortunate elf just looks at him in surprise. The teacher explains that a great sage can be a wonderful mentor, passing on his knowledge and strength to a student during intensive training. But the boy also deserves admiration. Not everyone would be able to withstand such a thing. And again he asks why the director doesn't notice him. But the director doesn't quite know how to answer this question, and starts saying the same thing over and over again. Seeing this, the teacher simply apologized for raising the issue. because he was convinced that the principal knew the subject much better than he did. Explaining that he is busy with a project, he quickly walks towards the exit. But before he leaves, he honestly admits that after watching the boy's performance at school, he was truly inspired to continue his research and became so engrossed in it that he even forgot to eat. He says that such things probably don't matter to the director and adds that he will see him later, after which he leaves. But as the employee leaves, the director hears a knock. Looking back, he sees it's the same person in the hood. He asks if she managed to complete her task. It seems like everything went well with the Phantom Stone, but there's still something to check. Now they can finally move on to the next stage. He can't hold back his laughter anymore. He suddenly starts laughing out loud, shouting that he can't wait to see it, and hopes that the old mentor will show him all his secrets. He can't wait for the decisive day to come. Much later, Reese reappears. He is training when someone approaches him. Thinking it is Muriel, he says that she hasn't come to his training in a long time. Suddenly a spell flies at the boy, but he manages to repel it and realizes that it was a stone wing. He looks around to see who fired the shot, sees a mysterious figure, and asks who it is. But instead of responding, she simply prepares a new attack. This time he uses fire, and that's when he realizes that this girl has 2 traits. But she decides not to strike another blow, saying it's unfair as long as he reveals his secrets. She then begins to remove her hood, saying that she will now show who she really is. It turns out that this mysterious figure was Muriel herself all along. Someone challenges him to a duel. After some checks, it turned out that there were many secrets surrounding Muriel Woodrow. The research was conducted by Karina. Although she is enrolled in school, she often misses classes, and even her classmates don't know who she is. She spends almost all her time in the campus library, constantly learning the rules of magic, and never even gets into trouble. When Kadena asked her teacher about her, he just brushed it off with some incomprehensible excuse. During the entrance exam, she completed the practical task almost perfectly. But on the written test, she only got 70 points. This all looks very suspicious. Even though she hides her abilities, she walks around the university grounds as if nothing happened. She often visits the old, now-closed magical training ground. As Kadena began to explore around, she found several targets. Barrier models with honeycombs. There's even some sound-absorbing magic there, a real laboratory for research. Entering the room, she sees a space filled with books. This reminds her that Muriel rarely comes to her dorm room, so perhaps this room is her real bedroom. It's obvious that the school has specially prepared this room for her, but she doesn't understand why she's being treated so special. She was brought here, so she's an ordinary student, and her parents are merchants who donate money to the school. But none of this explains why she's being treated so differently. So Kadena wonders what's going on here. She thought understanding Lovis Reese was difficult enough, but this was even worse. These examples make her wonder if Muriel also wants to be the best student in school. But if that's the case, then why is Muriel hiding her abilities? Maybe she's just really into magical research. Kadena admits she could be wrong, but it still looks really scary. But she's fine. She's completely calm, and there's no reason to panic right now. Later in the dining room, that girl slammed the table and said she heard Muriel and Reese were going to duel, and asked what was going on. The guy simply replies that yes, she challenged him this morning. And Latos notices that they are talking about it right now and asks if she wants to join. The girl sits down next to the 3 and asks what they talked about regarding the duel. Because as far as she knows, Muriel wanted the boy to become her lover. Reese honestly admits that he doesn't even understand why. Latos says he's sure his friend will refuse her just because she's a woman. Reese recalls that in the dream world, any injuries disappear, and he also trained with a witch who understands politics. And he openly says that if someone challenges him to a duel, he will accept the challenge with respect and show all his strength. Latos says he heard that the principal himself will be commentating on the fight, and now this duel has become one of the hottest topics on the entire campus. Everyone pays attention to Muriel, but no one really knows who she is, which is why she is called the mysterious brawler. Kadena believes that this fight must be truly special if the director himself decided to participate in it. She wonders who Muriel Woodrow really is. Meanwhile, the girl goes into her room but notices something strange. She immediately notices that someone has broken into the house. But that doesn't bother her at all. The girl just sits in her chair and sighs with relief. Then she grabs the pendant on her chest. It's the ghost stone. She starts watching Resh's fight video. She says that since she came here, only he has been able to make her feel that she is here for a reason. Her first duel completely shattered all the ideas about magic she had before. The speed and number of magic circles he created were simply amazing. And when the strong faced the weak, he simply used a simple protective spell. That was what made her fall in love with the way he used magic. She hadn't felt this much excitement since she first read the book her father had given her. For her, that guy was a real treasure trove of interesting knowledge. But it reminded her of Latos's question. Was she only interested in his magic? And because of this, she begins to doubt whether she really wants to become his girlfriend. Of course, at first she wanted to get closer to him to learn more about his strength and magical abilities. Her heart is beating fast right now, and she really wants him to feel it. At this moment, the girl remembers holding his hand, but then her hand slipped away. She was so worried that the first thing that came to her mind was to ask him out. And now she wonders if she would have said the same thing if it had been someone else in his place. At this moment, the principal arrives and notices that the girl skipped class again to come here. Muriel calls him sensei, but the director says that when there are no students around, she should call him master. The girl is annoyed because constantly changing names is very inconvenient. But her mentor says that he is the director here, and if anyone finds out that he has taken a student as one of his students, there will be a scandal. Besides, ever since he forced her to come in, he has tolerated all her little whims. The girl translates the conversation and asks why her master has come here. Then he says that the video has already been watched, and now all that remains is to test their guesses in a duel. He also tells her not to worry, because she already knows how to win and has thought out in advance what to do if something goes wrong. The main thing is not to make mistakes, and victory will be hers. Her owner smiles slyly and says that he has high hopes for this girl. He also adds that tomorrow is a great day to give someone a gift. When asked who exactly, he simply says that he invited a special person to watch the fight and hopes they enjoy it. Changing the subject, the elf notices that his student is more active than usual today and asks if she is worried about the audience. But the girl says no. She's just interested in fighting Reese, and the audience is just scenery for her. The director adds that Muriel, as usual, shows no emotions. And he says he's very surprised that she likes Lewis. He always thought she didn't like it when anyone interfered in her life. And now she was the one annoying him. Then he asks what she will do after examining him tomorrow. Muriel replies that she will thank him for the opportunity and shift her attention to other matters. This will end their relationship. At this moment, her heart clenches a little. Finally, the day of the duel arrived, and everyone gathers at the Colosseum. At the entrance, Reese wonders why everyone is so excited. Everyone gathers and starts scolding him, saying that everyone came here to support him. And the guy with the shield asks if his friend is one of these people. To his surprise, he hears that this time it really is. Alfie asks his friend how he thinks Muriel's chances of winning are, and Reese says there's no chance. He doesn't even know anything about her, let alone the 2 abilities she can use. Alfie adds that on the other hand, she might know the secrets of his magic. The magic cannon, the acceleration. She easily understands how those 2 spells work. Even if no one had told her, Alfie himself wouldn't have understood anything until Reese explained everything to him. A guy tells his friend that knowing something and being able to deal with it are 2 different things, and he is ready to bravely face whatever happens. Now it's time for him to go, but before that, Alfie shouts that he must win because only he has the right to defeat him. Reese shows with one movement that he will. The show begins, and the host announces the main star of the whole event, the young and not yet defeated Reese Lewis. And this time our guest commentator will be the school principal. And she will also be visited by a special guest, about whom she knows nothing yet. The guest introduces herself as a mysterious young lady, and Reese wonders what this political witch is doing here. Muriel, who is already on the battlefield, talks to her friend and asks if the little girl is really the one she is thinking of. The boy confirms. Yes, she is his mentor. This is the great sage. And the girl immediately understands exactly what her teacher meant. Seeing his smile at the commentator's table, she realizes how cunning he really is. Muriel jokes that she thought he had some secrets to his youth. But Reese replies that there are no secrets, and also points out that the director himself is commenting on the events. Immediately after that, the girl calls him her master. Lovis can hardly believe it. As he thought about it, he remembered his friend talking about taking lessons with a private tutor. Covering the microphone, the witch noted that her student and her tutor's student were the same age. The director says he hopes old Lolly will enjoy the performance, and she replies that she will only know when she sees what happens. The referee for this match will be Professor Zest. Everyone is eagerly awaiting the start of the match and is filled with excitement. This will be a duel between 2 favorite students. It's time to find out what happens next. Think about what the phrase favorite student mentioned by Witch Lolita means. Looking closer, he notices that Reese is indeed her favorite student. His mannerisms, communication style, and personality are all as if in a photograph, clear and familiar. So he directly asks her how it feels to see her own face during a duel, but the chaotic creature is just chewing popcorn. The announcer is indignant that this is a commentator's table, and if she wants to eat something, she must first put away the microphone. The pretend girl finishes her popcorn and asks if they really look that similar. She asks if Diest really thinks so, since he has much more experience with students than she does. The principal replies that unlike her, none of his students have inherited his strange nature. On the battlefield, Muriel thinks about Reese. The boy asks why she is thanking him. The girl replies that she is grateful to him for allowing her to study him so carefully. And he also apologizes for ruining his winning streak. Lova says she sounds very confident. Finally, after so much talk and delay, the battle is about to begin. The boy with the shield asks if she is ready, but the lazy girl replies that she has one more thing to do. She warns that she doesn't understand why, but when she gets really worried, she becomes a completely different person. Reese doesn't fully understand what she's talking about, but it's too late. The starting signal is about to sound. The announcer, as usual, announces once again that the fight has already begun, and suddenly he is surprised by a bright flash of light in the arena. He is already preparing a truly courageous blow, and in the meantime he wonders what his friend is hiding from him. He accelerates and rushes straight at Muriel, who is already preparing her magic circle. She creates a wall of fire, which unexpectedly stuns the boy. But since his magic cannot be stopped, the boy is forced to endure it to the end. He falls to the ground and begins to roll around to put out the flames. But as soon as he stops, a sharp thorn suddenly grows out of the ground. It's Gaia's spear, which is about to pierce the poor thing. The children still manage to dodge, rolling back several times, while countless spears grow from the ground. Finally, he uses the explosion to push himself off the ground. But before he can even look back, a fireball is flying towards him. It hits him right in the face, which greatly upsets Lato. Still, Reese managed to create a small shield to deflect the blow and avoid falling into the trap. The announcer is delighted that the offense and defense are constantly changing on the field, a real battle of action. The Lola Witch says that this girl fights incredibly well, and explains that it takes a little time to accelerate to maximum speed, about 1 meter. It is during this moment that she prepares her counterattack. If the child had accelerated at full speed, the wall would not have been so damaged. Muriel tells her friend that she has seen this ability many times and knows very well how it works. The announcer thinks it's time to say something important, and notices that the girls are using 2 magical properties at once. But here they say that the girl possesses both earth magic and fire magic. All the students who have noticed it say it's just incredible. Because of this, Reese also starts to flatter her. It turns out that she wasn't just magical like that. But the girl grinning says that she's actually just a charming otaku. In fact, she's even more of a nerd than he realizes. The boy says that then he will make her infatuated heart beat even more, and the girl happily replies that he will do so. Latos thinks it's all nonsense, and the fight continues. Breeze rushes forward again. The girl draws another magic circle and summons a stone wall. But Lovis simply jumps over it, using his shield as support, and is already preparing to strike with his gauntlet. But before he can do so, the girl launches Gaia's spear at him. But that doesn't stop him. He simply punches her spell and shatters the spear. Muriel, defending herself, quickly turns around and strikes with a fiery spear, but the protagonist manages to cover himself with his hands. He lands on the ground and immediately says that his friend is making it very difficult to approach him. Kadena notes how Muriel was able to take control of the fight against Reese Levis. Lato says it's unpleasant to admit it, but she turned out to be really smart. He notices that his friend is much more hesitant to approach than he is during the duel against Barca. Alfie then says that maybe Muriel gave him some advice, but the boy with blue hair doesn't believe him. Meanwhile, Barca sees it all and gets very angry. Again, these two are moving closer and further apart. The girl summons spears to attack Reese, but he uses his shield to jump up and change direction in midair. But as he watches the battle, Latos finally realizes something. The girl keeps repeating the same thing. I will explain that it is all because of the characteristics of his friend. Muriel repeats the same situation over and over again, changing the details slightly to see what happens. And that fool understands everything. Reese fends off another attack. He is pushed back a bit, but he decides to try something new. He picks up speed again and lunges at Muriel. And when she sees him approaching, she creates a wall of fire. The guy flies through it all without any worries, like he's crazy. Everyone is stunned. The guy just keeps pushing forward. But it doesn't matter to the girl. He lost the moment he used the acceleration. She uses the seismic wave spell and manages to dodge the blow. The impact threw him straight towards the barrier. But before that, he suddenly stops and quickly turns back to the girl. He fires a clay cannon and the shell hits him. But that's not all. Without giving him a second to rest, she casts the spell again, but this time it blocks. She then walks away while Lewis regains consciousness. No one can believe their eyes. The guy has just been attacked. Seeing this, Muriel bursts out laughing. She laughs almost stupidly. What a sudden change in mood. Everyone is surprised to see this. At the commentator's table, the old witch looks at her former student. Dist says he already warned her to get rid of this terrible habit, and wonders who taught her this, but the witch immediately exclaims that it was he who did it. Seeing this, Reese immediately understood what she meant when she said completely different. She had indeed completely changed. The girl begins to talk about how incredibly persistent he is, and adds that she didn't expect to meet such an unusual person at school. Her character has really changed. The girl says she finally learned about Reese's fatal weakness, and it makes him a little nervous. She looks at him angrily and says, "This is the end. His magic will never reach her." The shield bearer did not like this discovery at all, and Alfie added that it was actually Muriel who found it all. This is laughing at this situation. But Reese doesn't care if she finds him or not. He just races straight towards her. Love can't believe that fool is running towards the enemy without even using acceleration. Muriel uses every spell she knows: wall of fire, wall of stone, Gaia's spear. But the boy dodges everything. Impressed? She notices how fast he is, even without using magic. But she immediately prepares another attack. A bright flash of light almost blinds the boy, and he instantly raises his shield to repel the powerful attack. Explosion is his name, a punch so powerful that it puts pressure on the opponent's defense. The girl releases a huge wave of flames, illuminating everything around her, and says that she saw a new weakness in his defense after the duel with Barca. She creates 2 magical semicircles and connects them together into one whole. It was the Panzer bullet, a stone prism engulfed in flames. Alfie notices that Yorl is creating a powerful fire spell using complex attributes and shouts to his friend, "Don't try to defend yourself, just dodge the attack." This reminds Reese of his mentor's warning not to rely too heavily on his defense, but he tries to block the blow with it anyway. His shield shatters and he takes the full brunt of the blow. It happened a few years ago when Dist was walking down the street. The younger Zest remarked that since they had finished their morning chores, it was time to go back to school. Suddenly, everyone heard a loud noise. The teacher immediately thought they were being attacked. But as he looked up, Dist realized what it was. It was a girl who had been thrown out the window and was flying through the air. The director caught the girl and stopped her from falling. She was all burned and mumbled that she had landed badly this time, and thanked him. Dist said it was very interesting how something like this ended up in his hands. The girl was practicing magic in her room when an explosion suddenly occurred. Her parents immediately ran over and apologized for the incident. Zest later revealed that the girl's parents were the founders of Woodrow Trading, and had approached the school with a request to find a mentor for her. It seems she has 2 special abilities, but she has no experience in magic yet. Thinking about it, he realized that she was much deeper than she seemed at first glance. There was something special in her gaze during that incident. She was still young, so she probably learned this kind of magic on her own. So he agreed to find her a mentor. Zest said they didn't have a teacher right now and asked if he really wanted to hire someone who had just graduated. But Dist objects. He himself will be the mentor. What he had just seen in the arena reminded him of his first meeting with his student. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, the boy falls to his feet. He was knocked back by a powerful blow from magic. Everyone fell silent. No one knew how to react. All they could hear was the boy falling to the ground. There is silence, and the announcer is simply silent for a few seconds, not knowing what to say. After being hit by powerful magic, Reese's defense finally broke. Everyone starts discussing it and arguing among themselves. Latos simply cannot believe that this has happened. The announcer struggles to find words to describe Muriel's magic, but in the end, Dist simply calls it explosive magic. Those who use 2 or more attributes can create compound attributes. To do this, you need not only to be good at controlling the various elements, but also to have a high level of skill, and most importantly, to be able to use fire and earth equally well. This is how the complex property of fire explosion appears. The old witch explains that this combination of the very strong power of fire and the powerful pressure of the earth creates an extremely aggressive element. Such a force is capable of breaking through even Reese's defenses. The host asks her, as the only one who can explain it, to explain how protective magic works, and she agrees. The honeycombs form a barrier that disperses the blow and prevents it from breaking through the defense. But this has one major weakness. If the impact hits one spot, there's no way to distribute the energy. But the strength and thickness of Gaia's spear and the fiery spear were not enough to break through Reese's barrier. But it was only possible to penetrate this armor when an extremely powerful panzer bullet shot was aimed at exactly one point of the required thickness. Here it is, the magic that everyone has been waiting for. When Alfie heard the girls talking about his girlfriend, he realized that she was much more interesting than he thought. Reese has been unable to find the answer to who his master was for 10 years, and the mystery has haunted him. While he ponders this, Latos tries to bring his friend's attention back to the battle, and when he finally does, they ask him why he's so worried, and the blue-haired girl, on the other hand, wonders why he's not worried. Muriel thinks that even after a direct hit, this annoying guy still didn't fall. Alfie admits that he was a little worried, but only for a moment. At this time, Definite Expectations gets up again. To defeat him, you will need something even more powerful. Muriel is delighted when she sees this. It was a miracle to her. He was still standing, even though he had been hit directly by a fairly large medium-level magic spell. His incredible energy has already piqued her curiosity, so she says she'll give him a little break to test another idea of hers on him. The guy replies that it may sound good, but he doesn't care what she wants. It seems she really pissed him off this time. Muriel believes that curiosity is more important to her than winning. She is quite unusual and stands out for her unconventional approach, an amazing ability to absorb external sources in their original form. Laos doesn't understand at all what his friend is talking about, so I'll ask him if he remembers getting hit by a rock from a cannon. The first blow landed on him, but he managed to parry the second. At first, he thought it was just a rare mistake by Reese. But think for yourself, even if he wanted to, he wouldn't have had any chance to defend against the first strike, because his magical power has run out. Latos says that's absurd. If he no longer had magical power, how did he manage to raise the second barrier? So Alfie asks if he knows how magicians restore their magical power. Kadena explains, they breathe and absorb magical energy directly from the air. When you breathe in the energy of your type from outside, you can restore your own strength. But if you use up all the energy to the last drop, it will take several nights to restore it. Now that we know this, let's absorb the element of water, and Kadena the element of air. Which element you absorb depends on your magical characteristics. Finally, the boy with blue hair understood what attribute absorption was. Alfie smiles. It turns out that Lovis can regain her magical powers simply by taking a deep breath. Those who do not have certain traits simply do not have them. Therefore, they can absorb any external resources and transform them into their internal energy. Reese says his girlfriend is truly amazing. Aside from his mentor, she's the first person to understand this. The girl notes how candid he is, and the guy replies that he never thought anyone would understand him so quickly. Dist hearing this, he finally understands. The true power of a person without magical abilities is the ability to instantly restore their magic, and this is a truly amazing discovery. The old witch Lolita says that this can only be understood thanks to the boy's bright antics. Seeing this, Zest finally understood everything. Only he could solve this mystery. It is possible to increase the amount of energy you recover during training, but only he dared to test it in practice. There will come a time when everyone understands this, and it will change the world's attitude towards protective magic without origins. The professor wonders how many students have noticed this just now, but Muriel adds that it's very unfortunate to have so little magical ability. Then Reese realizes that his friend has figured it out too. And then Kadena asks what she's talking about because the magic measurer has shown that he has an incredible amount of magical power. Alfie says that if she means this particular instrument, then there is a special approach to it. The first result is his true magical power. Muriel says that the boy's magic confused her for a long time, and only after a duel with Gar did the boss finally understand everything. Because of this limitation, the magic cannon was unable to show its full power. Therefore, he had to end the fight with a regular blow. It was at this moment that she realized that all his magical power had run out. Reese's magical power is much weaker than that of a normal mage. In fact, he has less than the average person who has no magic at all. He can make 3 parries or 1 acceleration move. After that, he can only create 1 barrier. That's all he has magic power for at a time. Because he has little magic, all his actions are easy to predict. That's why he doesn't plan ahead, but simply acts on the situation. This is his main weakness. Everyone freezes in silence upon learning this. Only Dist smiles ominously. Muriel finally tires of talking and says that it was fun. Thus she concludes her magical story called Reese Luvis. The boy asks what she meant. But suddenly, out of nowhere, she casts an explosion spell. The spark from the spell flies straight at him. He doesn't have time to use his defense, so he just dodges. But right after dodging, another shell from the tank flies straight at him, so he has to run away again. While attacking the guy, she says that his only option is to dodge all the time, and she wonders how much longer he can run away. What was once an even battle has now become completely one-sided. I will add a comment that he did not expect Muriel to handle the difficult properties so well. This was the biggest surprise for him in this match. Lato finally gets tired of his friend's calm appearance and asks how much longer he's going to act like this in a situation like this. Meanwhile, Reese deftly dodges each attack, and Dias notices that the guy is stuck in a dead end. He finally admits that his old teacher's student is indeed very interesting, and that his appearance will definitely affect the future of magic. But it seems Muriel is too strong for this poor thing. However, when he looks at the old Lolita witch's face, he notices a slight smile on it. On the battlefield, this poor guy is running non-stop, and the flames are almost reaching him from behind. And he understands that, to be honest, he underestimated her. The only person who could have annoyed him like that as a child was Alfie, and he still can't believe that this girl managed to put him in his place so skillfully. In fact, she even organized the duel with Barcelona, and he doesn't understand at all how a person with such an indifferent appearance could have planned all this. But even in such a situation, he cannot contain his excitement, so he begins to think. The light it creates is very similar to what a magic cannon emits, but from this distance it can't do anything. So the guy directs the blow directly at himself. Muriel is so shocked that she can't even say anything. The host is shocked, the audience is delighted, and the old craftswoman seems so small that she is almost invisible. To everyone, it seems like the guy just exploded, but Alfie knows what really happened. Finally, someone has emerged who has surpassed him, but if he wants to win, he will have to become even stronger. Witch Lolita says she's shocked. She had to force her apprentice to use it. Muriel panics. The guy just shot himself with a magic cannon and blew himself up. It's completely incomprehensible to her. She starts thinking, trying to figure it all out. He remembers the scar on his chest. Panic grips him. Reese apologizes for what he is about to do, and a bright light floods the battlefield. Now he takes it seriously because he started using Transcend. Muriel watches in awe as Reese reveals his incredible magical powers and reaches a new level of power. A bright light begins to emanate from the boy, rapidly growing more powerful and blinding. Meanwhile, the magical spell around him breaks with incredible force. Suddenly, a mechanical arm appears from the energy he released. His chest and back remain covered in magic, even forming a wing. Now, with a robotic part and an energy center in his chest, he challenges Muriel Woodrow. Without thinking, he rushes towards her with all the speed he can muster. She is frightened, swallowing anxiously as she sees him rushing straight towards her. And with every passing moment, he only gains speed. Taking advantage of inertia, Reese adds acceleration to attack harder. Muriel instantly realizes that this is a trap. She reacts quickly and directs her power into the ground, causing a wave of earthquakes. He hits the arena and thus stays in the air so that he is not thrown down. The opponent is simply shocked when he sees this. She reacts instantly, unleashing Punsor Bullet, sending a hail of bullets straight at him. But Reese defends himself by creating a huge magical shield. The fragments explode as they hit the barrier he created. At the same moment, thick smoke quickly spreads around, obscuring his face. The young woman seems to be overly impressed with how he created multiple layers of protection, so that bullets couldn't easily penetrate them. In her opinion, he shouldn't be consuming so much energy. It's simply impossible for him. But Reese says she has a hidden agenda, and adds that she, being so smart, has probably already guessed it. With her eyes glowing with delight, Muriel says it's just a combination of a magic cannon and acceleration. One of the professors is stunned. He says that the damage to Reese, which appeared to be self-inflicted, was actually an amplifier of her power. Both she and Masturba are shocked by the whole thing. Muriel is furious and wants to know how this even happened. She screams and demands that Alfie explain everything, because only he knows the truth and can tell what they just saw. He calmly explains that the magic cannon is a spell that helps restore magical powers by working on the principles of the phenomenon of magical light. Surprised by this information, Muriel says that such power is only available to the strongest magicians. Referring to Reese's legs, he says that this spell works as a kind of compressor of energy within the body, allowing it to be released quickly. An explanatory scheme emerges, and he says that because of these factors, it seems impossible that Reese could have used something of this magnitude. Muriel seems to understand that the main secret of everything is the ability to condense everything to the most important thing. She concludes that Reese will be able to contain magical power in her body if she compresses it. Outraged, Kabina asks how one can fit a magical cannon that appears from the outside inside one's body and not die. But then she realizes that he can receive power from outside, because he has no properties of his own. Sharp understood now. She knew exactly how he had performed this trick with the device. Remembering everything down to the smallest detail, she remembers his hands and realizes that he released a small amount of energy that can no longer be taken back. I confirm that this is exactly what happened. He realizes that Reese has done a very difficult thing by choosing the elevation technique. At this point, Muriel is furious. But Latos is happy because he thinks that Reese deliberately decided not to try her best. But Alfie immediately denies this, because he knows that Reese simply didn't have the opportunity to go any further. Then he warns them again not to come near him. Boasting, he says that it's understandable why everyone is surprised by his action. Muriel pays no attention to his words. She is fascinated and wants to learn even more about his magic. He is not at all happy to see the joy on the girl's face, but she doesn't care. She continues to flirt, says she's noticed how strong he is, and even draws attention to the scar on his chest, where the magic worked and he survived everything. Continuing to tease, he asked if she was angry that he had ruined all her plans. She calmly says that it was all worth it to see his incredible abilities. He asks in response, with irony and a slightly threatening tone, if that is really the case. And without wasting time, he rushes towards her again at full speed. She is surprised by her quick reaction, so she immediately applies another powerful acceleration and hits the target with one blow. At this point, Muriel casts her spell and wonders if he's using these accelerations one after the other to change direction. As she thinks, she is hit with an iron fist, and the force of the blow sends her flying backwards. He watches as she takes off into the air. She, like a cat, always gets on her feet and feels real excitement from fighting and hitting. Even after the blow, Muriel does not hide her delight at how the spell is being used. That's not enough for her, so she asks for more and continues to attack. She throws more and more magic and spells at him, and now he is truly surprised by her persistence. Suddenly, a powerful explosion rings out in the yard, and everyone around is covered in thick smoke, blinding people. Ba challenges the Grand Master with a look. She seems to have understood something and asks, "Does the Grand Mistress consider herself evil?" Feigning innocence and looking playful, she asks why the young woman thinks that. Ba remembers the moment Reese reached a higher level. She understood that his young and not yet strong body would not be able to cope with this technique. This makes another teacher wonder. Wasn't this all an experiment by the Grand Master from the very beginning? She replies that they are jumping to conclusions too quickly. She explains that she never gave him any special techniques, only shared knowledge and training methods. But Ba still has doubts. The wise woman remembers the day she left him alone, and when she returned, she saw that he was vomiting blood and had a large wound on his chest. That day, she didn't punish him, but instead helped him dress his wounds. During the conversation, she admitted that the ordeal was indeed very difficult, and cautiously asked if he thought he was strong enough to pass it. He immediately said that he was ready for this, and understood well what awaited him when he agreed to become her student. She recalls the past and says that she only helped him, while he tested other abilities on his own. She concluded her thought as follows. A true teacher must show the student the path he wants to follow, no matter what path it is. She asks convincingly if Ba disagrees with this. Lo again questions whether the Grandmaster has never taught him any skills. She does not believe that her colleague is telling the truth, since she can see everything with her own eyes. Amidst the explosions and dust, Reese reappears, calm and ready for a new attack. Running straight at Muriel, Bo suddenly realizes something important and unpleasant. She could have known about this ability all this time and now wonders if she turned a blind eye to it. It seems that the Grandmaster immediately noticed Reese's potential, but she herself did not appreciate it. Bo realizes that he is not really suited for teaching, and at that moment another explosion rings out on the battlefield. Muriel understands that this fight no longer makes any sense. She already understands deep down that she has achieved her goal with this battle, and she doesn't even plan on winning. But she doesn't understand why she keeps fighting him when she sees him calling her name. She smiles happily at him. Suddenly Reese admits that she looks a lot like himself. In my youth, before I met Alfie. Others wonder why he suddenly started talking so unconsciously. He goes on to say that if it weren't for that boy, he would still be in the forest of Hades, just as she would be buried under a pile of books. Muriel doesn't understand what's going on. Reese continues and says he's not sure if she still wants to be his girlfriend. He jokingly says that he could still be his rival. The girl looks at him in surprise. He goes on to say that having a rival is much more interesting than just reading books, which annoys the girl, and she challenges him to beat her first. To this, he replies that he will do so, and their fight unfolds with renewed vigor. Now comes the decisive moment. Both give it their all. She shoots at him again, this time much faster than the first time. The guy is delighted with this. He rushes at her head-on, completely unafraid, and deftly avoids even her most bizarre attacks. With a rocket in his fists, he punches through the air. Muriel doesn't back down and exclaims that he should take this magic quickly. When she releases another spell, her power becomes so powerful that everything around her explodes from the shockwave. Everything dissolves into fog and whirlwind. Sensei Zesta watches with strange fascination, as if he derives special pleasure from it. Meanwhile, both continue to fight, not holding back their strength and emotions. A large circle of energy appears around them. Ree lunges forward again with his powerful mechanical arm, but the girl is not at all embarrassed by this. At this point, everyone is already wondering why they just won't stop. Bao gets worried and calls his student. Laos is jealous because the two of them are so comfortable together. Kadena is jealous too and agrees with her friend that it annoys them. You remember that for her, magic is no longer just fun, but something more. Tired, Muriel realizes that her body has almost no strength left. Yet she really wants to defeat Reese and wipe that smug smile off his face. After firing a fire cannon, she realizes that she is already at the limit of her strength. The guy can't get any closer. He tries to quickly dodge. Still, he manages to reach further than usual, just with his fist. The girl was simply shocked and very indignant. He turns on the magic cannon again. He puts a lot of pressure on her and sends her flying. Already lying on the ground, Muriel feels defeated after the fight, so she has no choice but to bet on quantity rather than quality, firing even more bullets in his direction. Dozens and dozens of them are stopped by the huge protective barrier that Reese creates to protect himself. Seeing that everything works, he feels satisfaction. Standing in a fighting stance, he realizes that his strategy is not as powerful as his magic spells, but he can still win. From his perspective, it seems like this conflict is already coming to an end. Without even thinking about surrendering, he prepares to deliver the decisive blow and announces, "It's time to end everything." Confident, he turns to his comrades. At this point, everyone notices that his power is weakening. Alfie says that the spell is finally ending. For Reese, the moment he had been waiting for had arrived. To win, Muriel believes she needs to act quickly and smartly. Without holding back, the professor yells at her to help her overcome the barrier. He understands that she will now use her main trump card, the girl's support for Reese. A new light flares up in his chest. The young man is simply replenishing his magical powers, and this surprises Muriel very much. So Alfie says that the acceleration wings also enhance magic. Once Transcendence is activated, he can continue to fight as long as he has strength. Muriel admits to being impressed and looks at him with admiration. That doesn't stop her from having a clear plan on how to defeat him. She just needs him to attack first. Reese wonders if he'll be wasting his time if he decides to use those eyes and the Faust. And on the other hand, she is already ready and has all her magic ready. Muriel is not going to forgive him that easily. Both charge forward with all their might. Reese prepares to use his final trump card. A strong gust of wind and pressure suddenly hit him. When two powerful forces collide, their incredible energy causes a huge explosion. Sensei Zest is completely confused by what is happening. The masters are stunned by what they have just seen. Kadena and Latos are both outraged and worried for the boy. Muriel doesn't stop and prepares the final blow, one that he definitely won't be able to defend against. But suddenly his fist appears from a gray cloud, terrible and unstoppable. She doesn't even have time to think about anything. Just seeing his sly smile after his super attack, he realized that he was able to channel the energy and magic of the explosion. Muriel understands that to escape, she must immediately counterattack. Reese is thrilled and decides to risk everything. Finally, the fight ends, and the opponents shake hands. Without losing confidence, Reese cunningly dodges the handshake at the last moment. The young woman admits that she really enjoyed fighting him and asks to duel again. He happily agrees, saying that he is looking forward to it. After all, now these two have become real rivals. Apart from the girls, everyone seems happy with the end of the battle. The entire arena is buzzing with what people have just seen. Reese Lewis has been officially declared the winner. But friends, don't forget to give the guy a round of applause for his success. He realized that he was truly unbeatable. Looking around, she mentally notes that the young man surprised her with his skills. Joking at his old mentor, Ba asks if he will ever become a great sage in her place. She replies that he still has a lot to learn before taking her place. Ba continues to ponder this. She is proud of Muriel, imagining this young woman and her talents. She remembers the first time she saw this little girl among books, giving her all to master magic. And now this girl is on her way to becoming a great researcher. If everything continues like this will be the right path. Daydreaming, she recalls a pleasant moment when she asked Muriel if she wanted something more than books could give. The girl, small and inquisitive, replied that she wanted to know more. That's how it all started. Then the mentor brought her to the school. Now that she understands everything, she is sure. As a mentor, she did not make a mistake with her choice. Suddenly, the old master curiously interrupts the conversation to praise Muriel for what a wonderful student she has become thanks to Ba's upbringing. She admits that despite her experience, she could not even imagine that someone would force her son to use transcendence in this way. When everyone suddenly laughs, the professor looks on in surprise, and mocking the praise she had just received from the old master. But still, the girl is so weak that she is carried off the field on a stretcher. Reese watches as she is carried away. Suddenly, Sensei Zest appears next to him and begins to say that he cannot believe that achieving enlightenment does not carry any danger. He asks suspiciously if the director's student was supposed to be very strong, and without waiting for an answer, he moved on. He says to himself with admiration, whispering again that she really is like that. The schoolyard is empty. Muriel wakes up a little sleepy. Her owner asks if she's awake yet. Finally, the girl regretfully admits her defeat. Ba asks what impression she had after the fight with the disciple of the great sage. Muriel seems very proud of this experience, as she never imagined she would ever take part in such a battle. She admits that she is currently experiencing pain that is completely unrelated to the duel. The teacher interrupts and says that it is unusual for her to be so worried. This surprises her very much. But Bo explains that this is the first time the girl has met a wizard her own age, and it's a new experience for her. After she thanked the host for the praise, she quickly changes the conversation to another topic and says she has a very important request. 3 days later, and goodbye. The teacher announces that a new student has joined the noble class. Muriel Woodrow introduces herself to the class and tells us about herself. Not wanting to stay here, she asks why this happened. The school and the principal simply decided that she belonged here. He helps her choose a seat in the classroom. She accidentally points to a boy's desk. She tells him to choose, either give up his seat or fight her in a duel. If he doesn't go, she threatens to challenge him to a duel. Reese, who is also among the students, seems surprised to see her. In response to his question, she says that she is interested in the topic and sits down. But later she herself admits that she is actually interested in learning more about the voice she was struggling with. She cast a gentle glance at him. The guy is confused and embarrassed. He becomes more thoughtful, turns away, although he cannot help but admit that she is a really strong opponent. Kadena looks at him and thinks he has a much bigger lead role than she does. Latos is writing something in her diary, but her thoughts are not there at all. That day, as she was walking through the schoolyard, worried about her exams, she suddenly saw Reese. She ran up to him trying to start a conversation, but then he noticed someone else next to him, and it was at that moment that he realized. It turns out that the rumors that Muriel had moved to the noble class were true, all thanks to that incredible duel. The only way to join them is to do well in your final exams. She is focused and determined to get what she wants. Muriel, Alfie, Kadena, and Reese walk through the yard, talking to each other. Everyone complains that they can't get to the training room because everyone is preparing for exams there. For Reese, this is understandable, because they study at a magic academy. Then Kadena reminds him again that he should be grateful to her for always solving all the problems and finding a good place to train. But still, he is surprised to see how many people there are. Therefore, the girl explains that duels are prohibited during exams. Kadena looks around and looks shocked. And finally she exhales with relief, feeling the atmosphere of the arena, even without the fight. But Reese quickly annoys her, constantly joking and saying that she is afraid of duels. Not forgetting his clownish nature, he summons several stones and begins to juggle. As always, Muriel's eyes lit up. She was incredibly curious that the guy was using protective magic just for fun. Of course, she wonders how he can just take and use magic for such a small thing. Meanwhile, Kadena observes and asks why Reese is acting so frivolous and ignoring the light Alfie is giving off. One of the rocks hits Muriel on the head, but he doesn't ignore the situation at all. He notices that several girls have gathered around Alfie to watch him show off his strength. Distracted, and denying himself that he is not jealous of his friend, he accidentally throws a few more stones at Muriel. Then he admits to himself that he is actually very jealous, and it annoys him. Trying to calm himself, he takes a deep breath and reminds himself that he is the best freshman in the class. He reasons like this: if Alfie is only third in the ranking, and he is already treated like this, then there must be even more girls around those in higher places. He is going through an identity crisis and thinks he looks ugly, so he barely notices two girls approaching him. But Muriel notices them. She looks so sternly that they immediately refuse to approach the boy. She slyly places her hand on his head and says it's better for him. He'll be able to focus more on his training. Then she asks if he thinks it's a good idea. Kadena notices the envy and says that Muriel is right. These girls don't care about magic. They just want to use it for their own purposes. While everyone says they don't really want to learn magic, suddenly someone can't stand it and starts begging Reese to teach him his techniques. To everyone's surprise, it's a small, stubborn boy who says this young man is his last hope, and Reese is surprised to learn that it's a boy. The boy says he barely made it to the aristocratic class, and the upcoming exam will definitely be the final nail in the coffin for him to be kicked out. Reese asks what his name is, and he indignantly replies that he is Tom, the same boy who always sat next to him in class. Well, he had actually been sitting there before, until someone took his place. Finally, the boy remembered his classmate. Proud of himself, he agrees that since he's the best in the class, he can at least share some good advice. However, deep down, Reese hesitates. As Tom shows off his skills, he gets a bad feeling about the boy's future. He doesn't understand why he feels this way, but he immediately starts analyzing the situation. He notices that the magic is very fast and uncontrollable. But before he can finish, the guy finishes the action even better, and he admits that this time it turned out pretty well. Reese cannot stop the intrusive thoughts and carefully examines Tom's face, noticing that he looks unhappy. After a certain epiphany, Reese realizes that if he is destined not to be popular, then this guy is destined to remain a loser. Suddenly, Tom becomes very emotional and admits that he thinks his parents and siblings are better than him. He admits that even when he got good grades in school, he was still made fun of at home. Unfortunately, he says that even when he became a nobleman, his family still thought it was some kind of mistake. Now Tom is determined to show everyone they are wrong and prove that he truly has the power. Reese interrupts him and says that she can't listen to these pitiful stories anymore. Calling it the chatter of a loser, he advises Tom to talk less and practice more. He agrees to help and suggests starting with a run. Days pass, and finally the day of the school exam arrives. The teachers gather in the yard to check all the students' tests. Alfie also takes the exam, and in the classroom, Reese, Muriel, and Tom are writing their papers, but they look tired. But Latos writes confidently and quickly passes his test, one of the first. Finally, the results are posted on the board, listing the names of those who passed the exam. Reese is happy to see himself in first place, while Alfie is upset because he couldn't pass him again. However, the boy notices that Kadena and Alpha have also remained in their places. He sees that both have the best grades and are doing great with practical tasks. But he is a little behind in his studies. Even so, he cannot relax. He understands that his main advantage is that he studied with a famous teacher. But still, he admits that there were some shortcomings in her lessons, especially in the textbooks. So he decides to revisit everything she taught him. Looking at the blackboard, he also notices that Tom is among the best students in the class. Suddenly, Lato interrupts his thoughts. She looks very pleased. Awkwardly, he says she did very well. Proudly, Lato points to her name and notes that she came in just behind Muriel in the rankings. But she notices that the girl wasn't trying her best. She also wanted to get higher scores. She somewhat awkwardly praises him for his good work on the essay test. But Reese doesn't understand what she's getting at. Finally, Lato says he can now make his request. The boy watches her with interest. Then she suggests a competition between the best student from the common class and the worst from the aristocratic class. The winner swaps places with the loser. Lato puts his plan into action, while Reese wonders who currently has the lowest place among the aristocrats. And that person is Tom. The girl wants to outdo the guy and defeat him in a duel. Surprisingly, Reese agrees because he wants to get rid of this guy himself. Satisfied, Lato says she's not going to chase them all. The conversation is interrupted when someone covers Reese's eyes and asks her to guess who it is. Of course it's Muriel, and he starts making noise. He gets annoyed when she says something unexpected. After that, Latua went unnoticed again. Suddenly, the teacher calls her by name among the students. She says that the girl received a letter from her family and now she must appear at the student assistance office. Lato looks surprised and a little worried about how urgent everything is. As she walks among the students, she doesn't even notice Reese looking for her. When she finally gets to her room to change, she looks tired. She takes off layer after layer of clothing, including the special bandages she uses to secure her airbags. She squeezes them in her hands and notices that they are getting bigger and bigger. This upsets her, and she thinks she should have been born a boy. Lying on her bed, she stares at the ceiling and stretches her arms forward thoughtfully. She creates a small magical barrier on the ceiling. She learned this from Reese. She thinks about him and imagines his face. She says that soon she too will become part of the nobility alongside him. Latos is truly in love and dreams of being with him. She imagines them walking hand in hand, and if she were to become his girlfriend, the thought alone makes her very happy. But she scolds herself, because it's just a fantasy. She has to stay focused to replace her brother, who died 10 years ago. Finally, she remembers the letter she took from the principal's office and takes it out of her bag. It's the first letter she's received since the argument with her father at home. Latos is outraged by this document. She continues to read, unable to believe her eyes and constantly thinking about her father. Just buy it in a few days. Everyone has gathered to watch the battle between Latos and Tom. Muriel has barely slept last night and is now barely able to stand. She staggers towards Kadena and Reese ponders this duel. He hesitates. Can he really defeat Lita? Tom is the first to enter the arena and gives his all in battle. Reese is confident that Latos will win in any case, even if the guy belongs to the nobility. He is surprised that she has not yet become an aristocrat, and he decides that the problem with her body must be preventing it. His observations are suddenly interrupted when Lato herself arrives at the stands. Everyone is surprised to see her there. The girls ask if she shouldn't be in the arena right now, preparing for the fight. She explains that normally in a regular classroom, no one would be allowed to stand higher than her, but another student was given priority. I'll see. He asks what that means. The teacher reads the document announcing the opponent and notices something strange, but doesn't ask questions because the document is signed by the head of the order. Then she calls in freshman Tara Woollock. The group is shocked. They don't even know who she is. Muriel says she knows everyone at school, but this is the first she's heard of this guy. Latos seems to know exactly who he is. From the arena, he looks at her. Their eyes meet for a moment, and it's clear that she's angry to see him again. Then Teria Valak enters the fray. Everyone in the stands is surprised by his appearance. For some reason, everything has turned into a real wonder. Reese wonders if Tom will even be able to survive. This guy is definitely not an easy person. From this moment on, the duel is about to begin. His opponent throws a balloon at him. Everyone thinks it was a very quick move, but the boy knows exactly what to do. He immediately starts using his magic. He protects himself with water prison magic. This magic is usually used to hinder the enemy. The young guy uses his incredible skill again and again. His opponent is already starting to get nervous about all this, but Teria doesn't care at all. The frightened boy tries to defend himself and attacks in return, using his ability against the other boy. This impresses absolutely everyone. The guy is determined to win. He puts in all his effort and fires his cannon with all his might. But it doesn't help. The barrier still can't be broken. It's like someone is joking. The terrier completely controls the entire flow of water. By controlling this flow, he repels all of his opponent's magical attacks. His classmates think it's a martial arts master's technique and wonder how he never studied in a class for the nobility. Others wonder why these attacks seem so futile. Suddenly, the guy throws a jet of water at his opponent, and he responds by launching a ball of wind. Therefore, he barely has time to repel this attack. The warrior stands in his defensive sphere. His eyes are half closed. He is ready for a new attack. Tom is in despair and doesn't understand what is happening. The terrier seems like a real monster that can both attack and defend itself at the same time. The guy doesn't know what to do, so he just keeps throwing wind balls one after another. Tom tries very hard, but sooner or later he still loses. He is very upset about this, and he is afraid that if he loses, he will lose his noble status. But that's not a problem, because no one really has anything to lose in this battle. Before Tom could understand what had happened, he was slapped across the face. His classmates watched all this, not understanding what was happening. The boy cries in pain, and Teria is declared the new winner. Some are wondering if the boy will now be transferred to a regular class. He may feel a little lonely, since almost no one communicates with him. His friend wonders if he's a magician who specializes in defense, but Reese disagrees. He uses defensive magic for attack, unlike those who only use it for defense. Suddenly, a message comes from the director. The focus is on a student who transferred mid-semester. Thanks to his victories, we will be able to get into a prestigious class. The guy understands that he was given preference only because he scored the highest on the exams. Meanwhile, the girl wonders why the guy decided to transfer now. Noticing the question, Reese asks if she knows the guy. She replies that they both have the same element, water. Everyone knew this family and their son was considered very capable. Reese Ewan mocks him, and here is his opponent. The new student carefully examines everyone in the stands. In class, he introduces himself as Teria Valect. Reese turns his attention to the board and realizes that everyone is now looking at him. The girl finds him very strange and asks what's going on. He tells the story of a terrier who, at first glance, seems perfect. He calls him a simple country boy, and it is at this moment that Teria appears. Smiling, he says that Reese is still the same fool as before. Reese becomes even more nervous, and the teacher calls him in. He asks the boy to show him the school, but the teacher replies that it is his duty as the class president. The boy didn't understand anything at all, and the teacher just leaves because he has nothing more to say. With a devastated look, Teria asks him to take care of him. He is interested in Reese's story because he received the maximum score on the entrance exam. To him, Reese and his team seem completely different from everyone else. But now they will all study together, and he hopes that everything will turn out well for them. By the way, this guy is not only handsome but also polite. He asks if the boy is eating well, and he nods his head. Friends notice that they looked very similar to each other. In the libraries of Hanavark, Latos calls out to Reese. Teria says he's very pleased to meet her. According to him, everyone knows her family. Reese asks why this man has anything to do with the Ganoyark family. But the guy just extends his hand to the girl. He says that he would be very pleased to have her support in the future. The main character is annoyed by the excessive closeness of others. But the girl quickly replies that she is having lunch now, and will only say hello to him when she is finished. Teria gets upset, and the other boys call him to eat with them. Reese says that in time, everything will get better, because Latos is a good person. But the guy takes it as a normal reaction and says he's not offended. After that, everyone sits down at the table to eat, but there is tension in the air. The girl turns to the Mistwold Drow. The atmosphere here is very tense. Something is definitely wrong. It's clearly not normal. She asks if Reese doesn't notice what's going on around him at all. Then he asked what Teria wanted to talk to Latos about. He says their families communicate well, so he just said hello to her. He asks if he can call her Latos, and she replies that he can call her whatever he wants. She says that the letter from her family has definitely arrived. This makes her start to panic, and everyone wonders what kind of letter it is. Latos quickly gets up, thanks for the lunch. But the guy calls her again. He says he wants to talk to her alone next time. She didn't answer and just walked away. Reese wonders what just happened. He asks if Latos watched her leave. After that, they never saw her again. Reese is currently giving the new kid a tour of the school. He also shows him where the event announcements are posted. But something is wrong with Teria. He doesn't believe that Reese is really leading him. The guy says it's nothing serious. but he actually thinks he was forced to do it. But the newcomer had something else in mind. He asks what impression he made on people. He wants to better understand what happened to Lato earlier. Reese doesn't know what to say. During lunch, he calls Lato before she leaves. He asks Terry what letter he was talking about. But the guy doesn't want to say anything because he thinks it's a family matter. Latos believes that interfering in other people's family affairs is rude, so the boy drops the idea. He doesn't want to bother his friend with it. Teria says there's a big difference between how someone appears and how they look, and Reese asks why he's always judged by his appearance. For some reason, the new kid in the class feels some kind of special sympathy for his classmate. He says that both have protective magic, but Reese claims that he can only use one such ability. The newcomer says that many have already spoken about his magic, but everyone has their own abilities. Usually, everyone prefers offensive magic for quick attacks. That's why Terrier's fighting style seems so unusual. But Teria thanks him for not suspecting him as much as he expected. The girl asks if he created the water prison spell. He replies that it is the author's spell with his own changes. It is called the Water Fortress, and it is indeed very powerful. He is very interested in observing how the surface of the water can be controlled. Suddenly, the boy decides he has to go. Reese asks if he's leaving already, and the guy confirms. A man is already waiting for him ahead. The young man apologizes for making him wait so long. This is S. Kim's, a servant of this family who also supports Terrier. The guy is now staying at a hotel in the capital. Kim can't live in a regular dorm, so the boy gets in the family car and heads to the hotel. Reese and a friend watch him go, understands that Kim is no ordinary servant. His friend says that hostels are safe. There's no point in staying in a city hotel. The guy thinks about it. This seems strange, and Reese starts to get nervous. But it's entirely possible that he's just a spoiled boy who needs a servant. Anything is possible. The next day, Reese sees all the girls surrounding Terrier. He is jealous because he thinks he should be the one surrounded by girls. Suddenly, the teacher asks everyone to be quiet. Today's training would be on mana control. He demonstrated how to use his powers through his hands and asked the class if everything was clear. This technique is very important for magicians. Without control, it will not be possible to create anything or even activate the magic circle. Everyone watches carefully and admires the teacher's skill. It's amazing how easily he adapts to these areas. It's no wonder Alfie was nervous during the entrance exam. All the teachers at this school are very strong, except for the teachers in this subject. When they acted together, it was her magical communication shield that helped break the octagonal barrier. The teacher turns to Reese and asks him to start. The boy tries this trick, and surprisingly, he does quite well. The teacher tells the other students to watch Reese and do the same. Besides, they ask him to become the class president because he is the best among them. The guy just nods in agreement. He watches his friends try to complete the task. Some have it easier, others have it harder. But the main character diligently helps everyone. It's easier for him because the task is similar to what he's doing in training. But his classmates are just starting to understand what's going on. Terrier calls him for help. Reese shows his friend how he has been doing the exercise so far. He praises him, says that everything is going well, but the newbie disagrees. Terrier is surprised that the teacher has such qualities. Reese jokingly asks if he thinks that makes him better than Alfie. The guy agrees, although he hesitates a bit. But suddenly he shifts the conversation to another topic, asking about Lato. The main character replies that he hasn't seen her. After the incident in the dining room, no one saw her again. The newcomer then asks permission to ask another question. He wants to know what Reese knows about the handwork family. The young guy is surprised by such a question. But he admits that he knows almost nothing, only that this is a noble family that has a connection with the water element. The rookie returns to training. Reese asks curiously why he brought it up, but Terrier immediately changes the subject. Still, Reese can't stop thinking about it. He's about to ask another question, but he's interrupted by a group of classmates calling out to him. Want to ask questions? Reese realizes that he won't be able to focus on his own training today. He thinks he needs to find out what his classmate knows about the Goodno-Arc family. He is friends with Latos. They have known each other since school days. But he doesn't know everything about her, and he knows even less about her family. He knows some of her secrets, but still, he still doesn't fully understand his feelings for her. Just like he does now that she's staying away from everyone. He wonders if their relationship will end the same way. That's why he needs to figure out what's going on, because he's already been thinking so much that his head is spinning. He stops at a small restaurant and orders something sweet. He wants to add a little joy to his life. A candy seller cheerfully chats with a little girl, showing genuine kindness. The girl happily thanks him. She says she is so happy that she will buy all the sweets in the store now. Reese quickly scolds her and takes her away. He asks what Loli Baba is doing in this place. The little girl doesn't understand why her brother is in such a hurry. She says he shouldn't be jealous because she's choosing him anyway. Then the guy asks why she keeps going to the capital. He says he is uncomfortable watching his relatives behave so foolishly. In principle, there should be no shortage of sweets in the forest where she lives. The nobles who tried to take her away from there eventually betrayed her by staging raids. Crossing the forest she lives in is almost like climbing Mount Everest. But Reese notices something strange. He asks if a regular storage box would solve this problem and hands her the key. The girl replies that such a thing is very rare. A regular chest holds as much as a backpack, but wears out over time. But that product is a premium handmade item made from extremely rare materials. If she sold it, she could buy herself a luxurious house and still have money left over. And now this extremely valuable thing will end up in the forest. But the girl asks him not to give her such things, because she also has her own possibilities. She says that the thing is already his and refuses to take it. She asks him to do with the box whatever he wants. And then the little girl leaves, leaving behind a surprised Wind. However, he has no intention of selling it at all. He notices Latos in the crowd. He calls her name anxiously. He tries to reach her, but all his efforts are in vain. Eventually, he loses sight of her. He confidently rises into the air and looks around carefully. He begins to look for the girl and eventually finds her. Suddenly, a stranger stops near him and offers to go on an adventure together. The boy runs away in frustration, thinking he's just wasted his time. The locals decide he's a thief and start chasing him. Disappointed, he thinks that fate itself is trying to separate them. He screams to the sky, calling his girlfriend's name with all his might. But she doesn't even stop and just keeps walking. On the way, Latos wonders what she's doing. She's still going to school, but she can't concentrate on anything at all. After classes, she no longer trains or studies. She no longer sees meaning in life. She thinks she heard Reese call her, but she thinks it was just a dream. She steps out into a small square. She sits down on one of the benches and tries to gather her courage to return to the dormitory. She notices something moving around her. Suddenly, a boy appears right in front of her and jumps up in fright. Reese Lavis was finally able to find her. He says he went through a lot to get to her. But the girl just asks what happened. He says he heard that she hasn't been sleeping well lately and hasn't been eating much. Embarrassed, she confirms this. Then he gives her something and asks her to at least eat it. It is a special nutrient, and the girl eats it without any hesitation. But she immediately senses how disgusting it tastes, and almost throws up. To help her, he offers her a sweet fruit to refresh the taste in her mouth. The girl almost cried with relief when she tasted the fruit. She asked, a little irritated, what exactly he had made her eat. But strangely, she felt better now. If the taste was better, it would be just perfect. Now they are both sitting on a park bench. It seems like they have nothing to talk about. When he asks what she's been up to lately, she replies that it's nothing special. And they continue chatting without really talking. It's clear that she's lost in her thoughts. Reese doesn't quite understand how to act around her. And then she asks how Valak is doing. Her friend says that everything is fine with him because there are many girls around. And he starts to think about it. There are many things about Teria that he doesn't understand either. But he doesn't seem like a bad person. The girl gets up and leaves, not wanting to listen to her friend defend Teria. Finally, Reese asks about that letter they mentioned in the dining room. The girl just laughs because she finds the situation funny. She admits that she was wrong then. Her dad sent her a letter on behalf of the entire family. She says that her father is strict and the relationship between them is not very good. It was Latoise's father who decided that she should attend this school. She says they often fight at home. Meanwhile, in Reese's family, his parents got along well and genuinely loved each other. His father supported Reese so that he could continue going to school. Lato admits that he is very jealous because of this. She respects her father both as a leader and as a wizard. According to her, he is a true old-fashioned aristocrat. Reese insists again and asks what exactly is written in the letter. She was frightened and asked if Wallach had said anything about it. The girl starts crying because she feels like she won't be able to say anything in this state. Her friend tries to understand why she reacted that way, but his friend shouts that none of this has anything to do with him. She starts crying even harder because of everything that is happening. He apologizes again and promises not to mention it again. He just wants her to get a good night's sleep and not miss meals. The girl asks why he is so worried about her. He replies that the reason is that they are friends, and that is enough. She stands alone in the middle of the square. She wonders why she's even here. Suddenly, Teria appears behind her. He replies with a sly smile that makes her look very cheerful. The girl turns around, surprised by his appearance. The boy remarks that this is the first time they have been able to talk since he transferred to a new school. He also notices how different her expression is now than when she was with her friend. She gets very nervous when the man is around, and she needs to talk to him. She accuses him of following her, which she finds completely unacceptable. Without hesitation, she asks if he wants to say anything because she has something to say herself, but quickly changes her mind. She says that this is not necessary, because she is happy with everything the way it is now. The guy understands her reaction. He knows the circumstances she's in. He even admits that he has some sympathy for this. But the girl immediately replied that he knew nothing about her. Meanwhile, his bodyguard was closely watching everything that was happening. The man's majestic appearance frightens her even more. Teria calls Kim's. She apologizes for not warning her about the presence of the security guard earlier. She gets even more irritated by all this. Novenki notices that she clearly doesn't get along with her father. The girl angrily asks him to shut up. She says that none of this matters and demands that he leave immediately. As you might expect, the tutorial is not always easy to follow. The security guard intervenes and advises the guy to be a little more open. But the guy insists that he's already sharing everything he can. The guy admits that he's holding back his feelings for that girl, and that's why he feels so bad. Finally, he asks Kim to stop trying to guess how he feels because it's only annoying. Reese wonders what makes a simple carriage different from the one the rich drive. His friend asks in surprise because these are ordinary cars, but suddenly something unexpectedly alarms both of them. You don't often see a crew like this, so your gaze is involuntarily drawn. This day they will have a joint lesson with another group. Reese hopes that by then, Kaya will have returned to her normal life. At the assembly point, the student squad stands straight, in perfect order, as if on parade. The exercise involves practicing the accuracy of magic with a new partner you are not yet used to. The teacher, with an ironic smile, invites the ordinary class to look at the noble student and notice what makes him stand out. That's all he says, leaving the question up in the air. Reese watches his friend carefully, trying to catch his reaction. The girl next to her is clearly not happy about this situation. He is considering whether to suggest dividing the class into two groups. But just then someone loudly calls his name. The terrier with a smile suggests joining forces. His girlfriend appears next, already visibly irritated, and says that she will also join this group. Tension immediately flares between them. She screams, demanding to stay out of other people's family affairs, and he just stares at her in silence. He understands that sooner or later this topic will come up anyway. It becomes clear that she is going to be given away for Teria. Reese looks at Latos and Teria in complete shock. Sometime after the start of the group, all the students gather on the training field. Korea asks if everyone understands the rules and objectives of the lesson. Today, you will need to work in different places, and with new partners to learn to better control magic. Angrily, she reprimands Zest for trying to get around the rules by grouping together. Turning sharply, she leaves, but hears Muriel and Reese talking quietly under their breath. Kadena asks her friend if he knows why the teacher is so openly and unkindly picking on him. Whatever the reason, he doesn't care. He's one of the best in the class. His friends just remind him that she was the one in charge of their practical work. The teacher confirms that it was because of him that she had to take on teaching the noble class, so now she keeps a close eye on him. Alfie suspiciously asks if she can use attacks under the guise of a lesson, and everyone turns their eyes warily to him. But Zest immediately stops such talk, assuring her that she would never do such a thing. Besides, the master has already asked her to restrain her anger. Not allowing the gossip to continue, she admits that the teacher was right about their company and orders them to find other partners. One of the senseis demonstrates the exercise, instantly creating dozens of targets on the field. The first class is dedicated to distance magic. Reese is excited and hopes that everything will go well with his team. The lineup included him, Lato, and Teria, who says in a passive-aggressive manner that she hopes for that too. The guy feels very excited, not understanding why Latos joined if she doesn't like Teria so much. Reese begins to cast a spell, holding the magic circle in his palm, and decides to ignore his doubts. His companions watch with interest. A light flashes between his fingers. He chants a magnification spell. The light flashes, and his hand transforms back into a mechanical cannon. Seeing this, Zest immediately approaches to find out what the boys are up to. Reese merely advises him to relax and watch, then aims the cannon and opens fire. The laser beam pierces through several targets, shattering them into pieces. Satisfied, he asks Zest how he feels. The professor admits it was perfect. One of the boys, amazed by what he saw, joyfully exclaims that he wants to be next. He doesn't always manage to hit accurately, and several targets remain unscathed. The boy watches as the others hone their shots. He notices that at a distance of 25 meters, most of them are doing well, but they can't move any further. However, some groups clearly stand out. It is especially interesting where Alfie is now, and what Muriel is doing, who has decided to divide her magic into several streams. Her target is blown apart by the impact with incredible force, and Reese is shocked by what he sees. He also notices that Kadena used a similar tactic, building a large defensive barrier and simultaneously firing at wooden dummies. Seeing these abilities, he admits that he might even lose to her. Kadena says with a charming smile that she can do it herself if she wants to. It's time for duels! Teria summons balls from the water to hit her artificial opponents. They hit right in the center, but the professor notes that they were a few centimeters short of the ideal. Zess asks if she wants to try again and promises to judge by the best result. Teria politely replies that she is happy with the points she has earned and will use them to become better. But now is not the time. Latos also summons the water balls. She hits the targets squarely in the center without stopping, each time straining her arm and expending more and more strength to maintain the magic. Something is getting out of control, and she continues to cast the spell as if she can't stop. But suddenly, Reese grabs her by the arms and stops her, warning her that she will be completely exhausted otherwise. She, irritated but tired, agrees. To encourage her, he says that it is important to work hard, but even more important to know your limits. Embarrassed, she asks him to let go of her hand. He awkwardly and quickly lets go, apologizing, and Latos walks away. Reese looks thoughtfully at his fingers, as if he enjoys the touch. He finds himself thinking how delicate her hands are. Even Theria's are fragile, but not at all like Latos's. Feeling her warmth on his palms, he breaks the silence and says it's time to move on to the next lesson. She has no idea that Latos is also looking tenderly at his hands. After the first training session, students perform many more exercises. They practice short spells, train magical defense and the ability to work with fire. Everything was effective, but also exhausting. I had to go through a lot of checks and constantly stay focused. Latos coughs, and it's clear that she's struggling. She's exhausted, but stubbornly continues to do everything she can. He hugs her, reminding her that he warned her not to rush things. She mumbles that it's unfair, because he recovers much faster. But this weakness doesn't stop Teria. She takes on each new task as if it were her first. Her desire to compete with the boy exhausts her to the limit. Professor Haria suggests simulating a fight between the participants. She explains that only basic magic can be used, and suddenly shouts out Reese's name loudly. He reminds her that he cannot use his main strength or develop new abilities, and she ironically agrees. The real battles begin. The students use magic, throw back their opponents, and cast spells. Reese watches in admiration, until suddenly the blows are already flying at him, and he instantly responds. He is already rushing at his opponent with all his might, ready to punch him in the face, but a loud scream forces him to stop, preventing the conflict from escalating. Zest quickly declares Reese the winner and helps the boy to his feet, regaining his usual composure. Suddenly, Daria challenges him to a duel, and this interests him greatly. But Latos approaches him angrily. She states that Reese has already fought, and now it's her turn to fight Teria. Teria agrees without further ado. Her friend tries to dissuade her, reminding her that she is exhausted, but Latos sharply asks her not to meddle in her affairs. She only adds that the pill he gave her yesterday really helped. Reese watches intently. The master announces the start of the match. With fury in their eyes, the rivals look at each other and simultaneously release a spell. A powerful explosion makes everyone around them shudder. Both girls move quickly and deftly, dodging attacks. Teria acts easily and gracefully, combining several blows in a row. Latos misses a shot. The students around them are delighted, although some are splashed with water and hit by debris. Reese immediately recognizes the water projectiles that Teria has fired. Meanwhile, Tom plays the victim, lying on the ground after a water shock. Reese is relieved to think it's a good thing Tom wasn't seriously hurt. Someone asks if Latos is losing strength. She is breathing heavily, while Teria continues her relentless attack. Her blows are mostly aimed at the legs and thighs, and Reese wonders if she's deliberately avoiding hitting other places. Latos falls and covers his face with his hands, seething with rage at his defeat. Teria approaches, and suddenly Latos declares that victory is hers. She suddenly kicks with an aqua kick. Teria doesn't have time to react and flies to the side. Quickly recovering, Teria follows her, ready for another strike. Latos understands that he must act instantly. Teria uses Aqua Drive, knocking Latos off balance. The shot hits the target and Latos falls, covered in blood. Teria is announced as the winner. Several girls immediately run up, enthusiastically calling her incredible. Reese wonders why he's so nervous, even though he hasn't paid much attention to girls before. Latos doesn't get up, remaining lying down. The teachers order a nurse to be called, and several students check to see if she's okay. And suddenly a strong wind rises. An explosion is heard. Reese activates his mechanical arm without hesitation. He runs up to Latos and tells the teacher that they have to leave early because they have something important to do. He picks her up and helps her to her feet. Seeing that she is too weak, he takes her in his arms and instantly disappears, using his speed. Sensei doesn't even have time to realize what has happened. Tori asks if he was right. Reese replies that it was a serious advantage. The two of them were soaked to the skin, like wet battering rams after a storm. He takes her with him, even though she is still weak and can barely stand. Reese sits in her room next to the bed where Latos is lying. We learn that after Teria hit the girl with a water cannon, she was almost exposed. Everyone could find out that it was actually a girl. That's why the boy hid it in his room. It must remain a secret, no one else must know about it. After a while, the girl begins to open her eyes. The hero sitting next to her says, "Good morning." Then he explains that they are in his room now, not hers. Latos wakes up completely and starts screaming, but when she gets out from under the covers, she is getting very cold because she is still wet. As he leaves the room, Reese tells her he'll be back in 20 minutes, so he advises her to take a shower and put on some of his clothes. On the street, he thinks. Really, they definitely didn't skimp on the school's soundproofing. Lato immediately goes to the shower, and a few minutes later calls Reese to come back. Embarrassed, she thanks him for the clothes. Returning to the girl, the guy asks why she is without pants. She replies that all her pants were too big. Unlike the shirts, which turned out to be very tight, Reese, sitting on a chair, tries not to look too often in the girl's direction. The girl asks what happened after she lost her theory. Reese says he distracted everyone and took her outside. An irritated Latos asks what he's going to do now that he's found out her secret. But the guy says he won't tell anyone anything. Interested, the girl says, "There are many ways to exploit an aristocrat's weakness, both for enrichment and for power." Reese replies that he is not interested in any of this at all, and asks him if he looks at all like someone who blackmails others. After thinking about it, the girl realizes that the guy has known her secret for a long time. Everything is confirmed. Reese admits that he understood this from the time of their duel, and the director warned him that she had some special features. At the end of the conversation, he says that he will bring her clothes now. Holding her shirt, Latos asks to hear her story and explains why she wears men's clothing. We learn that the Hanoark family had a young daughter who received the same education as all future noble ladies. Reese says something, but the girl asks him not to interrupt the story. She goes on to say that this little girl had a brother. Latos Gnork was the talented heir to the Gnork family. Our guy is shocked when he hears this news. The girl says that her brother was good at water magic and everyone considered him a genius. Because of this, the father trained his son every day to meet expectations. Meanwhile, the little girl was very fond of her older brother. They began to imitate him and secretly learn magic. Smiling, Reese says that her dad must have scolded her badly when he found out. The girl confirms that her husband had an old-fashioned way of thinking. That's why he didn't accept that she was using magic. Still, she didn't stop training, and Latos began to secretly teach her magic. She recalls that these were the happiest days of her life, because then the future of the Ganoyark family seemed secure and safe. But 10 years later, her older brother died. Reese felt sorry for the girl and said that if she didn't want to, she didn't have to continue. Smiling, the girl says that she is tired of keeping everything to herself and wants to finally tell her story to the end. Latos died in a magical explosion during training. At least that's what she thinks. Because of this, the funeral was held in secret, and everyone was told that her brother was seriously ill and lying in bed. Since she was still a child, she didn't fully understand whether her parents were lying because of politics, or because they couldn't accept the truth. But after that day they moved. My mother stopped getting out of bed, and my father started drinking every day. While she was settling matters with the maid, "Take care of your little sister." Looking at the woman, she says that she can leave the baby under her supervision. She says she knows her sister feels lonely. It was then, looking at herself in the mirror, that she realized how much she resembled her late brother. The girl immediately rushed to her room and cut off her hair. She changed into Lotus's clothes and completely changed. Then she decided to go to the room where her father was staying. She knocked on the door and asked the man to teach her magic. When she opened the door, her father asked what she was doing here anyway. After that, he hit her in the face and said that she was dishonoring the memory of the dead. Lying on the floor, the girl cried. But even after that, she came to her parents every day in the same form. She believed that if she tried hard to be like her brother, maybe her family could be saved. Hearing this, Reese is simply shocked. Then the young woman says that one day, her dad agreed to the training, and together they went out into the yard, where she had to show what she could do by defending herself from a blow. The husband said she was too slow, inattentive, and lacked strength. And during the counterattack, he said that Latos is much better than that. This meant that she was just a cheap fake. Suddenly, someone unexpectedly hit the man from behind. This caught him completely off guard and greatly surprised him. When he turned around, he saw no one, and noticed that the remote transmission was already on. With wide eyes, he asked how the girl managed to do such a thing at her age. The next day, the man called the girl into his office, where there were no more scattered bottles. He said very seriously that from now on she would live as the heir to the Hanoyark family. That's how she became Generk Lato. The boy asks if it wouldn't be better if they just said he died. The girl agrees, but adds that she looks a lot like her brother. The only difficulty was that she had to learn to act like a boy. She studied magic, and her father taught her this very strictly. Smiling, she says that this is what helped her family begin to recover. And the only thing her mother asked was that she keep her hair long. So for 10 years, the girl was sure that she was doing everything right. But one day, a letter arrived. The same one that she had not allowed him to read. They said that her future husband had already been chosen. She was confused. Reese is trying to figure out if it's a boy or a girl. Latos, who is not really Latos, says it all started a month before she showed up at school. Then her father told her he wanted her to marry a boy and become a girl again. This scared her so much that she couldn't even become a noblewoman. Despite all this, she decided to keep pretending. But when the letter arrived, she learned that her father had decided that Teria would be her husband. That's why she started acting aggressively towards him. Ending the story, the girl says that she will go to her room now, but the main character shouts that she should not go without pants. Handing her the clothes, Reese says she just needs to put on the belt, and also give her bandages so that the girl can use them and not return them. Then our guy leaves the room again. At the same time, he thinks about how proud he is of himself after everything he's heard. Suddenly, Lato opens the door and asks if he can help her with the moment that gives away that she is a girl. In the room, the girl apologizes that she is not yet strong enough to deal with this on her own. But noticing that the guy is currently going through a crisis, she asks him to hurry up. It's like he does it every day. The guy just agrees. She thought that she must be very ashamed right now too. Reese tries to silence the voice in his head and convinces himself that it's time to just do it. Latos shows him where to apply the bandage and how tight to tighten it. While listening to the instructions, our boy thinks only about how he would like to fall through the ground and disappear. Concerned, he says that such a tight outfit probably doesn't even let her breathe. But she says she's used to it because she's been doing it for a long time, although she doesn't want adolescence to bring so many worries. Suddenly, Latos turns around sharply. Reese turns her back and apologizes. She smiles and says she'll need his help again, like she even enjoys it. Determinedly not wanting to pay attention to his actions, Reese asks if Latos' theory knows she's a girl. The girl agrees that the guy knows everything. Then our guy asks what the guy's family thinks about this marriage. Lato replies that everyone is optimistic. In the end, it's a win-win for both families. The guy, worried, asks how she's doing. Xiang says he has nothing against Teria, but she doesn't want to get married. Smiling, Reese says that it used to look very different. Lato, blushing and getting dressed, replies, she will most likely leave school after the first semester to prepare for her wedding, because it seems her dad decided everything as soon as she passed the entrance exam. The protagonist asks if this is all happening too fast, but the girl just says there's nothing she can do. Her dad is just the way he is, and there's no changing that. So she has no choice, and now she can't even gather her thoughts. Reese decides to learn more about lotteries, and she is surprised to see that everything has disappeared. He freezes in surprise and starts screaming, not understanding how this is even possible. Because something so big cannot be completely hidden. Reese holds out his hands and asks if he can check because he needs to make sure. But the girl casts a spell on him and warns him that it's better not to even try. As she leaves the room, she says she's going back to the dorm and thanks him for listening. Reese is silent, lying on the floor. We see Latos walking slowly down the hallway, until she goes into her room and falls onto the bed. The girl takes a blanket and begins to wrap herself in it. For now, she remains like a cocoon in the middle of the room, and doesn't understand what's happening. Because despite what others think, Reese is a good person. So when he found out her secret, he didn't tell anyone. But even so, the situation had gone too far before, completely confused and distraught. The young girl wonders if the boy was trying to do something. She tossed and turned for a long time under the blanket. Latos rises! She thinks she's happy because the guy sees her as an adult girl, because that's what helped her understand how she really felt about him. Standing up, she approaches the mirror. Looking at her reflection, she says, "This face is a lie I have lived with for the last 10 years. Then, remembering everything that had happened to her up to that point, the girl understands that everyone rejects the 10 years she lived as Latos. But she cannot just forget about this life, because this feeling in her heart just won't go away. Night falls and we see something flying out of the school window, heading towards the forest. Reese suddenly bursts into his grandmother and says that he urgently needs help. The problem is that after her bath, she does stretching for health and longevity, so he'll have to wait a bit. On the street, Reese wonders if a person really makes that face when they come across a scene like this. A woman appears in a dress and says that she was not expecting guests in the forest of Hades in the middle of the night. She wants to know what he is doing here. Embarrassed, our boyfriend says he'd like to talk to her about a friend. Then he tells the whole story about Latos. He asks his grandmother to share her wisdom with him. She pondered everything she heard, about getting married and about dropping out of school, in a situation where you have to hide or disguise yourself. The protagonist shouts that he can't think of anything else. The woman says he is truly pathetic, but now that he has calmed down, they can talk peacefully. The woman gets straight to the point and asks Reese what he's going to do with this girl. Without hesitation, he says he wants to help her, but nothing comes to his mind except to slap her father, someone who could most likely beat him up. The woman says that violence really won't solve anything here, After all, the problem is actually much deeper. Everything is confusing here, because it involves the girl's deceased brother, her father, her marriage, and her dropping out of school. First, you need to find out what the people involved think and want. This will help him find a solution. Having risen, the protagonist's grandmother says that this is all she can advise, and from now on he must decide for himself. We see Reese with his head stuck to the desk in the classroom. A boy approaches the guy and asks, "Why are you like this?" Smiling, the main character says that he went a little overboard with his morning workout. A girl approaches the boy and asks if he's really going to use such a weak excuse to just skip class. After thinking about it, the guy realizes that he needs to be careful if he wants to maintain his position. But now he can barely write. Looking back, he sees the girl sleeping and decides to help her wake up. He then throws a small shield sphere, and when it hits, the girl suddenly wakes up excited. She was confused and didn't even understand what exactly hit her on the head. At the beginning of the lesson, the teacher says, "Good morning," and asks her to come to the board and solve a problem. Although she slept through most of the lesson, the girl solves it in a few seconds. After thinking about it, Reese decides that for her, this behavior is normal. At the end of the lesson, he tells his classmates that he has an appointment today. He is confident that he knows exactly what needs to be done. Suddenly a guy appears and asks for help. Smiling, the guy says that he knew. After yesterday, you would definitely come looking for him. Suddenly, the main character remembers what his grandmother once told him, and he begins to think that Teria has come to find out how he revealed Latos' true gender. But the guy suddenly says that now is the time to have a practice fight, which they didn't have time to do yesterday. They both quickly run outside. In Tread, Reese says he doesn't mind fighting, but wants to know why it has to be done on this empty training ground. Teria says it's easier this way because you don't have to worry about other students spying. In fact, he called him out to talk too. Smiling, our guy says that now this guy has really interested him. Then the boy asks what the rules are here, but adds that he doesn't see any point in them, because there are no teachers here. Excited? The main character says that then you can have a great time. The main thing is that no one gets sick the next day. Turning on her magic, Teria is happy to meet the best student in their class. Reese rushes forward, but is immediately stopped. He decides that since his blow missed, it must be the guy's ability. Water Fortress. Suddenly, a multitude of water tentacles appear, rapidly approaching the protagonist. He manages to activate his shield at the last moment and immediately casts a spell. Are you worried? Teria says no one has ever been able to escape his water whip from this distance. The guy attacks our protagonist again without hesitation. He then asks if he knows the secret of Lato. Reese doesn't respond because he's completely focused on defense. But later he says he knows. This boy is actually a girl. She thanks her opponent for protecting her yesterday. In his mind, Reese notes that this guy is really honest, because he could have just ended the fight, but he didn't. Looking ahead, Teria notices that the boy has suddenly disappeared from his sight, and then suddenly appears right in front of his face. But even so, the guy manages to turn on his shield and throws our hero far away from him. After several flips in the air, Reese lands safely on the ground. The blonde guy says that he could have at least warned them in advance, and is about to attack again. The protagonist replies that this was his warning. Teria uses her magic again, releasing even more water tentacles. Our guy starts hitting non-stop, and the opponent immediately understands that this is a counterattack. The protagonist smiles and says he knows. The guy still has a lot of questions. Teria tries to control himself and asks how he found out about his fiancé's secret. Reese remembers fighting that girl and starts laughing. And at the same time, it continues to beat its tentacles. He realizes that the guy's water whip can keep up with his pace. He then talks about everything that happened. It's just that Lato got what she deserved for her actions. Curious, Teria asks if the girl said anything about him. Again, he strikes with the strongest blow, but surprisingly, Reese appears on top. He says that Lato doesn't seem to have any particular dislike for him. Defensively, the guy asks if she has any problems accepting him as her future husband. Our hero flies away again, trying his best to dodge the blows. Standing up again, he realizes that his opponent has no weaknesses. Then Teria says that now it is clear why Latos does not want to get married. Because she pretended to be her brother for 10 years. But even despite this, her father started the conversation about marriage. Someone had called a secret meeting to discuss this. This surprised him greatly. He had not expected to hear such a thing at all. The most amazing thing is that his family is considered the heart of the nation, and the Noarch family is its shield. My father immediately agreed to this offer because he couldn't refuse. Our main character asks the guy if he's happy about the wedding. Teria says she sees no reason to refuse to reunite the families. The protagonist explains that it is about accepting Lato as his wife. The surprised boy says that in the past he was constantly compared to his older brother and considered worse than him. Reese asks, surprised, what he means. Teria says that as a child he was often made fun of because he had weak strength. But over time, He realized that the magic he was using simply didn't suit him. So he began to search for what kind of magic best suited his abilities, even though everyone around him told him to stop fooling around. But when he won one of the usual competitions between families with the water element, people began to consider him a true genius. Because of this, he began to wonder how to properly use this power. And although he really wanted to become the heir in the family, his brother, who was 4 years older, was already considered a near-perfect candidate due to his talent and natural ability. And even if in a few years he can defeat him, it seemed like no one needed his presence. So he gave up trying to enter an educational institution and decided to join the army, to show that this is exactly his goal. There was no need to compete for the main role in the family. Reese understands that even in this case, Teria will still remain second-rate to everyone because of her abilities that are not suitable for a soldier. The story continues as follows. The guy says that the marriage proposal was like a lifeline for him, because it showed him a different path in life. And even if he has to hurt Lato because of it, he will still become the head of the Noarca family. This does not please Reese at all. Without getting upset, Teria says that thanks to the girl's father, he was able to study at this school and develop his abilities, and that he is glad to meet the main character right here, because that battle helped him become stronger. Looking straight into the boy's soul, our hero says that he has found a way to destroy his water fortress. Then he throws himself at him with all his might. This is where you get scared. But Reese says his water fortress can't be moved once created, and the aqua whip only works over a short distance. That is, the best way to solve the problem is to strike from a long distance and focus on one target. This is what Muriel used against him in another fight.